Good afternoon. We are back as we get into the case, the actual case in the Alec Murdaugh murders case. This is a double homicide trial. Alec Murdaugh is a disgraced South Carolina attorney who is accused of killing his wife and son. There are two other counts for the possession of weapons during the commission of this crime. I've not paid them a lot of attention. Those counts tend to go along with a homicide carried out with a firearm. There were two different firearms alleged to be used in this case, and there has not been a ton of information, a lot of rumor, a lot of speculation, but not a ton of information in this trial. So we are getting into opening statements where the attorneys will tell us how they think this case went down and tell us what evidence they expect to present and what they think that evidence will show. It's not a time for argument. It is a time for a roadmap, and I am very interested to see. So we will be getting into it. I'm very interested to see how the prosecution will be proving this case. I kind of gave my wrap up of what I thought I would see at the end of the morning stream. I always split the streams in two, so it's a little bit easier on not just the streaming software, but so I can get some lunch and go to the restroom. I will be covering this gavel to gavel the best I can. There will be some days where I might be traveling, but we are going to get into it. Court should be resuming in just a few minutes. I am going to give kind of answers to the questions I've seen a lot as we get into this. I don't know if we'll get to witness testimony today. The jury is sworn. It is a jury of 12 with 6 alternates, 8 women, 4 men, and away we go. They seated this jury very quickly. But they did 2 days of qualifications. So once they got it down to a panel of 8 or to a panel of 80, they were very easily able to select 12 with the alternates. And yes, I brought popcorn. I said I would if they got to opening statements today. I was surprised. But it sounds like South Carolina uses a 300 question questionnaire to go through determining jurors. And then when they show up, you've already got quite a lot of information as they're getting qualified. So the actual questioning of the jurors went much faster than I've seen it go in most jurisdictions. So with that, we're going to roll the intro. We've got things to do today. So let's get going. Our streams, by the way, Law Nerds, you're smashing it. Replay crew, I will try to link if we have links to opening statements and court breaks and things like that down below. There's a new episode of The Emily Show, my #1 entertainment news podcast, available in your podcasting app. The video will be up later today. My kiddo's got early release today, so hopefully he'll be getting home here soon and be popping in and letting me know that he's home. And if I have to get up, I will just leave the stream rolling and get up and then come back. We'll just figure it out. It's fine. It's a stream. We're good. We're covering it. You're here to chat with each other and hear what I have to say, so let's just get into it.
Hey there, I'm Emily D. Baker, the internet's go-to legal analyst, breaking down the legal side of the pop culture and entertainment stories we can't stop talking about. I'm a big fan of the cursey words. I've been a licensed attorney for over 17 years, but this is not legal advice. This is where the law nerds unite to talk about facts, not... Let's get into it.
Y'all, honestly, this case is wild. We don't have a ton of information. What we do need to remember, I'm making sure my phone is on Do Not Disturb. What we do need to remember is that there is a presumption of innocence here. Alec Murdaugh is presumed innocent for what he's being accused of. The prosecution has to prove to this jury beyond a reasonable doubt that he is the one who killed his wife and son. He is a very powerful individual in a small county. He is well known, and that is why they called in 900 jurors to try to select a panel of 18? It is a lot of information. There's also a lot of ancillary information. That means there's stuff going on around this. Over 100 indictments for financial crimes, drug crimes, a suicide for hire plot, stealing from clients, tax evasion. No, Siri, it's not your moment. There are a lot of other charges here, a lot of other indictments here, but we are focusing on the murder in this case. The defendant did not waive time. He pushed to trial within the period. That's why this has gone so fast within the time that he was charged. These crimes occurred on, and I'm looking at my notes because I don't want to get dates wrong and I'm terrible with dates, June 7th, 2021. He was not arrested till over a year later. And now, I think it was August when he was indicted and arrested. Wait, we'll just pull up the indictment. Emily, the indictment will say the date. just pull up the indictment. We have a minute. We're not there yet. The indictment's July 14th, 2022, and now we are in trial 6 months later at the beginning of 2023. So let's pull up this indictment so y'all can take a look, and we'll go from there. It's some of the parts are sideways. I apologize. I didn't re-rip the PDF. Emily, is your screen shared? Do you know me? Do we even stream? Emily, is your screen shared? This is a delightful question. No, it's not. No, it's not, but it is now. So let's pull up this indictment. Look, y'all know how it is. For those of you that are new to my channel and just finding me, just WAP. We are professionals here. So the crime occurred June 7th, 2021. The indictment came down July 14th, 2022, and now we are here in January. Did I say June? January 2023. So this is the indictment that they are working off of. I hate that this goes sideways. Case number. Each crime is a docket number. So I was a district attorney in Los Angeles County. A lot of times when we had multiple cases, it was one case number, and then multiple charges. Charges 1, 2, 3. You heard this when I covered the Darrell Brooks case. The judge read count 1, count 2, count 3, count 60, whatever. In this case, each one has its own docket number. Why do they do that? I don't know, but they do. So each one will have its own docket number up at the top here, and you will see each indictment. Indictment 1. Murder on or about June 7th, defendant Richard Alexander Murdaugh. Yes, the defense attorney, the lead defense attorney's name is Dick. Yes, the defendant's first name is Richard. Could we say Dick is representing Dick? Yes. Yes, we can. Will I make jokes? Yes. Do I have a yodeling pickle? Is it even a stream if we don't anymore? We just started with it this morning, but you know what? It's a stream. It's a stream. That's why we're here on the stream. Because sometimes we just need a yodeling pickle or a screaming goat, because these cases are wild. Wild. So with that, June 7th, defendant Richard Alexander Murdaugh in Colton County did kill another person with malice aforethought. That's your first-degree murder. To wit, Richard Alexander Murdaugh did fatally shoot the victim, Margaret Maggie Kennedy Branister Murdaugh. That's a long name. With a rifle, and Maggie Murdaugh did die as a proximate result thereof, all in violation of section 16310 of the South Carolina Code as amended, against the peace and dignity of the state. That's a languaging that's not used in a lot of states, but I like it, and contrary to the statute in such cases. Indictment number 2, there is the docket number. Indictment number 2 is same, but for Paul Terry Murdaugh with a shotgun. Interesting, because I think with regard to Paul, it is a shotgun, and with regard to Maggie, oh yes, it is a rifle. So the languaging there is different. So that's as to Paul, shotgun, rifle, different charges. Possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime. On or about June 7th in Colton County, defendant Richard Alexander Murdaugh was in possession of a firearm during the commission of a violent crime. To wit, did possess a rifle when he murdered Maggie Murdaugh. And then it'll be the same with regard to a rifle with a shotgun when he murdered Paul Murdaugh. So those are the 4 things that this jury is going to have to consider. We have a live feed now from court. We do not have any audio yet, so I will keep this live feed of court up, just like we did during the other cases that I have covered live on the channel. I'm keeping the sound down so you don't see me literally leap out of my seat. So those are the 4 charges against him. Buster is in the courthouse. Shocking. He's on the witness list, so before evidence starts, he might be removed, but he will be allowed to watch opening statements. That varies based on judge. So it varies based on judge. Jenny said, I just got Taco Bell, didn't get a pizza though. Taco Bell sounds delicious. Definitely don't have time to go anywhere else during things. But one of the things I love to eat during trial, and have for a very long time, I love the flat pretzels. I have the ones that are everything bagel flavored. Here's what I did not consider, and y'all are going to have to just peace and love. The everything bagel has poppy seeds, which I love, but they get stuck in my teeth. So if I have poppy seeds in my teeth because I've been snacking during opening statements, I apologize. apologize. Law and Crime only has 5K watching. I mean, we're over 12,000 here. Don't forget to do the YouTubey things. And again, y'all are here. If you want to go watch another channel, which is completely fine, watch where you want to watch. I think we have the best community. I don't think. I know.
I know that we have the best community.
I know that we have the best community on the internet, and this chat is Bay, and that is why you are here. I know sometimes I can also provide information that is helpful. But it's commentary, but I appreciate the streams. And if we need to switch streams, we will. The reason I stayed on this stream is because A, the court has made it very, very clear in a court order that no one owns copyright in this. So if Law and Crime tries to be sassy, I will lose my mind. And B, Law and Crime is one of the only channels that provides closed captioning. And I definitely try to provide as much accessibility as I can. And since I am not closed captioned because of the delays, and I'm not closed captioned until after the stream, I do want to try to close caption at least the attorneys as best we can. And I will always look for that if I can. But we looked and I didn't see any other ones that had closed captioning as the mods were looking for it. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, I'm gonna get to questions and we will just keep going. Court has not started yet. Am I ever gonna shade a court for being late? No. Will I modify the start times of my streams knowing that court might be a little bit late? Yes. Appreciate the CCs. I do too. And I watch a lot of television closed caption just because I don't want to turn it up so loud and because I've spent a lot of time in cold water. And so my ears aren't always great. And sometimes I'm like, wait, is that what they said? The closed captioning can be interesting in cases. I think they called Amber Heard Amber Hurt the entire trial, but it is automatic generated closed captioning. So we'll just go with that, do the best that we can. And we'll just do the best that we can. And if we have to move it, then we have to move it and we will. Fun fact, you went to law school with my dad, Seattle U. So yeah, if you're ever in Paris, you can ride my horse around the countryside castles. That's delightful. It makes me feel old. I love that I went to law school with your dad at Seattle U. I loved Seattle University. I ended up transferring because my husband moved for work. And sometimes when one spouse moves, you go with them. And I couldn't face 2 years without him. But Rosie, tell your dad I said hi. And if he wants to shoot me an email, is welcome to. I always love connecting. Pickle merch when? I don't know. Pickles are Tug's thing. I do like the yodeling pickle though. It's pretty funny. I think we need to give him a name. The chat has definitely suggested Pickle Ray. I think that we have, or Ray the Pickle. I think we have Law and Lumber to thank for that, but I'll allow it with all of the grief I have caused to Law and Lumber. Since they don't ask the jurors a ton of questions, is it possible that they researched the jurors yesterday? Is that even allowed? Yes, it's allowed. They would have had the juror list of 900 in advance of this. They could have been researching that. They also would have had any questionnaires filled out in advance of Monday. How far advance, I'm not sure, but they would have had that in advance of Monday as well. So they would have had more information than we have for sure. So I appreciate it. Someone else said Pickle Angelo, Pickle Pete, a peck of pickled peppers, maybe. So we will see. Lurkin Gherkin, little bit. Lurkin Gherkin is funny. Dick the Pickle. I mean, it might be Pickle Dick. Pickleasso to go with Vincent Van Gogh. Pickle Ray Cyrus. You guys are so funny. I love it. So we'll see. Let's see. We were talking about the closed caption called Johnny Depp, Mr. Death. That's true. It was Mr. Death and Miss Hurt. It was wild. So we're just waiting for court to start. So we're just going to get to chat. I've got screen is out of focus. It shouldn't be. I would restart the stream. Will the Dill. I also like Will the Dill. What's the big deal? That will be too long for me to say, but I like it. Have you tried the chocolate pretzel crisps? That exists. I didn't know that. Okay, well, we got to a different, we still don't have audio, but we got a different view. Maybe we're preparing. I don't know. We can't hear. Classic Vlasic is hilarious. Bill the Dill. I will have to add, we might have to take a poll later. Pickle Prosecutor. We'll see. We might have to take a poll. There are so many good names, y'all. There are good names. Gary Gherkin, Fickle Pickle. I like for that too. All right, we might have to take a poll later. This might be something that we do at the end of stream. I love it. Please quickly explain why this case is so huge. I think it's my opinion. I would love, you know what I would love to see, chat, since we've got a minute. If you would put what interests you about this case, if you can, in the chat, I would love to see why y'all are interested. Here's what's so interesting to me. This is a powerful family going back multiple generations, multiple generations of power in the Low Country in South Carolina. This attorney is accused of doing everything from hiring someone to shoot him in a suicide for hire insurance fraud plot, to killing his wife and son, to stealing from clients, to covering up crimes of the son that has since been slain. It is fascinating. There is a lot of conversations to be had in this case about privilege and power and wealth and the dynamics of the kind of old boys club in this area. And this is a dynasty type family that has had this happen. It feels like something written by John Grisham. And then there are hundreds of hundreds of other indictments around this case. I have never seen anything quite so staggering. And then there are still mysterious deaths that have not been solved. There is the mysterious death of Stephen Smith, who was, they say it was a hit and run, but there is some evidence that doesn't seem to be quite accurate. There were rumblings that he was connected to Buster Murdaugh or in a relationship with Buster Murdaugh. He was openly proud and gay in an area where that sometimes raised eyebrows, and with a family that might raise eyebrows with. His family has talked very openly about it, and he was found not too far from their property, and that has been unsolved. But the investigation reopened after the murders of Paul and Maggie. It is believed, and I don't remember where it was said, that evidence that came up in the Paul and Maggie murder case reopened the investigation into the death of Stephen Smith. Then, when I did a podcast episode of The Timeline, I was like, there's no way this is real. There's no way this is real. There's no way this is real. So that is my first episode on the Murdaughs on the Emily Show podcast. Then you have a boat crash. Paul was alleged to be, and again, this never went to preliminary hearing or trial because Paul was murdered before that came up. But Paul was alleged to be behind the wheel of a boat that was speeding through the waters in the Low Country at night, hit a pier pylon, and killed Mallory Beach. He was under the influence at the time. Others on the boat were under the influence at the time. Were any of them 21? Nope. So that boating under the influence causing death case and the allegations that Alec Murdaugh was going around the hospital trying to essentially tell all the kids in the boat to shut up, not point the finger at their son, and then maybe try to spin this back on one of the other young men that was in the boat that survived, Connor Cook. There are civil lawsuits going on with that. The civil lawsuit with Buster Murdaugh and the estate of Maggie Murdaugh have settled like in the last week or so, but there are insurance cases. There are cases between the family and the liquor store that sold the alcohol. Alec Murdaugh is being sued in that. There is a whole world of civil lawsuits, but the criminal is no longer ongoing because Paul Murdaugh was the one everyone believes was was steering the boat. It was his dad's boat. And he's deceased, and you can't prosecute someone, and you don't prosecute someone after they are deceased. Then their housekeeper is not quite the right word. They're like property manager who also raised and helped raise their kids, died under mysterious circumstances at the Moselle property where these murders took place. Maggie and Paul Murdaugh were there then. There were multiple 911 calls from the two of them. The housekeeper has since been exhumed, and they are investigating into that death as well, as to whether she tripped on the dog on the stairs or not. Then Alec Murdaugh placed her sons with an attorney to sue him or sue his insurance. And then he worked he worked behind the scenes and ended up stealing the money that was awarded to her sons for himself. And so then the financial crimes start to unwind. This was not the only client that is alleged to be stolen from. This one he has actually pled to, and this has since settled. Then it's like then and then and then. Then he gets arrested with regard to financial crimes. This is years later. Again, I have a whole podcast episode and I didn't pull up the timeline to go through this. Then he gets arrested, and then the financial crimes start spiraling. When he is out, before he's in a treatment facility, he is alleged to have hired Curtis Eddie Smith to shoot him. That individual has said, well, we were tussling over the gun and it went off because he was trying to get me to shoot him to get this $10 million life insurance policy for Buster Murdaugh, the surviving son. Then all the other financial crimes start getting tacked on, and now you're getting literally indictment after indictment after indictment after indictment, and then he's indicted on these murders. And after the murder indictment, there have been other indictments on financial crimes, narcotic related offenses, and tax fraud. It is wild. This case is class and privilege and wealth and legacy and intrigue and the murder of a wife and son and 2 different weapons and who did it and did he hire someone to do it? And that's not what's being alleged here. If I was going to think about this case, if I heard all of that, I'd be like, wouldn't he hire someone to murder? I mean, if he's going to murder someone, wouldn't he hire someone to murder? Like, I still have questions about that. It's wild. It is a real life. Brenda in the chat said it's a real life John Grisham novel. Yes. I mean, when I go through, where's my timeline? Let me pull up my full timeline. When I go through my notes, my timeline is extensive. And since court hasn't started yet, maybe we just go through some of it together. Court hasn't started yet. Here, let me switch this. Let's see. We have, I think my initial note is it's like Tom Girardi, but there's also insurance fraud and a whole lot of suspicious deaths. So July 2015 is when Stephen Smith was found dead 10 miles from the home. February 24th, 2019 is when Paul Murdaugh gets into the boat crash that kills Mallory Beach. February 26th, 2019 is when the housekeeper Gloria Satterfield dies after a fall at the house. The boat crash happened 2 days before Gloria Satterfield passed. I still want to know.
Wait, that's not what I was trying to do.
Wrong button. I still want to know what Gloria Satterfield knew about the boat crash, because the timing on that is wild to me. What did Gloria Satterfield know about that boat crash? What did she know about the death of Mallory Beach? What did she see Paul say or do? And it is widely reported in the Low Country. And if you watch some of the documentaries on this or follow the Mandy Matney podcast, the Murdaugh murders, or any of the other local reporting on this case, it is widely reported that Paul Murdaugh had a alternate personality that could be quite aggressive when he drank, called Timmy. I can only hear South Park. Timmy. I just wonder if that's what his friends intended. So anyway, I am curious as to what Gloria Satterfield, and again, they call her the housekeeper. I think she is more of a property manager, family manager, because she helped raise the kids and everything else. She felt the property on that day. She dies weeks later in custody, or not in custody, I'm sorry, in the hospital. She dies not immediately from that. So the family said she tripped over the dog, but the 911 calls are a little odd. On March 29th, 2019, the estate of Mallory Beach sues. This is going to come up in this trial. The lawsuit with regard to the Mallory Beach boat crash factors into the prosecution's theory of the case that all of the financial reporting with regard to the Mallory Beach boat crash and the discovery in that is part of why these murders happened, because that was like the day or two before the day or two after these murders happened. I saw somebody say this whole timeline from start to finish in Bailey Sarian is suspicious. Yes. So we have that boat crash, and then we're going through the civil lawsuit and the criminal suit, or the criminal case with regard to the boat crash. Then on so that's March 2019, June 7th, 2021, Maggie and Paul Murdaugh are shot at the house. Alec is a person of interest, they say, but he's not arrested, anything like that. On June 8th, 2021, police confirmed the identities and said that of Maggie and Paul Murdaugh, said there's no threat to the family. June 10th, 2021, Alec Murdaugh's father passes away. Murdaugh did say he was visiting, I believe, his mother when the murders happened, but also his father. And so there's stuff in there too. There are allegations around the interwebs. These will probably not come up in trial, that the murder weapons are buried with the father. I have no idea. June 23rd, 2021 is when the Stephen Smith investigation is reopened. The statement from South Carolina Law Enforcement Division confirmed that SLED opened the investigation into the death of Stephen Smith based upon information gathered during the course of the double murder investigation of Paul and Maggie Murdaugh. That is the direct quote from their press release. June 7th, 2021, attorneys for a survivor of the boat crash filed a petition alleging a civil conspiracy connected to law enforcement and the members of the Murdaugh family relating to the boat crash. So allegations, civil allegations of a conspiracy to cover up the boat crash. July 22nd, 2021, SLED released the 911 calls that we will hear in this trial that you've probably heard elsewhere. September 3rd, 2021, Alec Murdaugh resigns from the law firm. It's very interesting because this is as things are starting to crash down, and we will see some of these witnesses testify. The law firm immediately puts up a message saying, "We are shocked and dismayed to learn that Alec violated our principles and code of ethics. He lied and he stole from us. No member of PMPED was aware of Alec's scheme." Some of these individuals might be witnesses in this case. "When we learned that he betrayed our trust, we requested his resignation immediately. We have yet to speak to anyone who was aware of his addiction to opioids. We have read the media reports about the lawsuit and settlement relating," oh, I see the judge coming onto the bench, and settlement regarding the lawsuit. If these reports are accurate, regarding the death of Gloria Satterfield, if these reports are accurate, we are stunned at what occurred. Then on September 4th, that's September 3rd, 2021. September 4th, 2021, Alec Murdaugh is shot in the head on the roadside. Shot in the head on the side of the road. The next day, September 6th, Murdaugh entered rehab. September 8th, the Supreme Court suspends his license. September 10th, a spokesperson for Murdaugh releases a statement that the shooting was not self-inflicted and that he sustained a skull fracture. September 13th, state police open an investigation into the law firm PMPED, Murdaugh's prior firm. September 14th, Murdaugh confessed that the shooting was an assisted suicide plot to ensure a $10 million payout to his remaining son. Curtis Edward Eddie Cousin Smith was a one-time client of Murdaugh, was charged with the shooting, charged with assisted suicide, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, and insurance fraud. He's on the witness list for this case. I wonder if the Murdaughs are going to try to argue, or the defense is going to try to argue, that he did it. But we will see. The prosecution's already made their motion that you can't just throw out, this information. Oh, I know. I need to make a demonstrative for this. I need to make a demonstrative for this timeline. In the video where I break all this down, the timeline pops up on the side. That's a podcast episode. So I do have that. I was just going through this quickly since court hasn't started yet. And then from that September 14th admission about the suicide for hire plot, it is complaint after complaint after complaint after complaint. And it just starts to unravel. There are more lawsuits with regard to Mallory Beach and the crash. There are, and then there are attorneys talking to the media. There are statements given to the press, and it just continues to unwind. On October 6th, 2021, less than a month later, PMPED sues Alec Murdaugh. They have given money back to all the clients that they believe were stolen from, and then they sue Alec Murdaugh to recover those funds. On and on and on. On October 14th, 2021, Murdaugh was arrested in Florida on 2 felony counts of obtaining property by false pretenses. I'm starting to hear rumblings from court. On October 15th, Murdaugh's lawyer went on Good Morning America and said that Murdaugh was injured in the killing, that he went to the ICU. There was a lot that was in that Good Morning America interview. I'll have to share a link to that. His assets get frozen. He stays in custody. He keeps asking to get out of custody. And then the indictments continue rolling in. We're now at over 100 different indictments and a murder trial. So when it's asked, why is this case so riveting? because everything is sus, everything is weird, nothing makes any sense. And what did everyone know? What were people being silenced? Was Alec trying to make it look like his family was being targeted from the boat crash? Is his family being targeted? And there's a murderer still at large. We don't know. We're here to find out. It sounds like people are just getting into their seats. We've got an open feed in court now. I can hear it pretty well. Those court audios can be quite loud. So let's see. Is this jury sequestered? Not yet. Will he ever get out if acquitted? Unlikely, because of the financial cases. So even if he's acquitted on this, he might not, he will not be released from custody. Normally, if somebody's acquitted, they're released from custody and processed out, but he's still in custody on a whole bunch of other cases, not just this one. So I'm very interested to hear all this evidence. And sorry, I'm going to try not to do that into the microphone loud. Apologies. So it sounds like people are shuffling into their seats. And we will see these opening statements shortly. Court was supposed to start about 27 minutes ago. That's okay. Not the case for me. FOMO on the EDB stream. LOL. Well, thank you. So it's not the case. It's the me. Well, thank you. Sherry A, deal with it. Deal with it is kind of funny. All the layers makes this interesting and makes you question a lot of things. Thanks, EDB. Love your commentary. I have so many questions about this case. Just so many questions. And again, Mandy Matney was the one who started pulling the thread about the Gloria Satterfield settlement, was like, this is weird, this is weird, this is weird. And then...
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen.
We begin!
What I will say now is intended to serve as an introduction to this trial. These remarks are not a charge on the law.
Opening
I will
instructions.
instruct you on the law
Opening
in greater detail
of the judge.
at the end of the trial before you retire to consider your verdict.
I take notes.
But this is an explanation of the procedure that we will follow in this trial so that you may better understand what's happening.
Prosecution table.
The defendant
This is not a full courtroom. I expected this to be much more full.
2 counts of murder and 2 counts of possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime, the elements of which will be explained to you later. He has pled not guilty to these charges. He's presumed to be not guilty of these charges. He cannot be found guilty unless the state presents evidence which convinces you, the jury, of his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. The charge is simply the documents by which the case comes into court. Your purpose as jurors will be to decide the facts of this case.
The facts.
And out of all the people who were summoned to come here for jury duty, out of all the people who live here in Colleton County,
you've been picked.
Out of all the people who live here in the state of South Carolina or any place else,
you win.
Only the 12 of you who will deliberate can decide the facts of this case. And you'll determine the facts of this case from the testimony which will come from this witness stand, together with any exhibits which is made a part of the record or any stipulations entered into by counsel. It is especially important that you perform your duty diligently and conscientiously and in conformity with the oath that you took, because ordinarily there is no way to correct an erroneous determination
of facts. Love the chair, love the vibe, love the whole thing. I love everything about it.
Just as only you can determine the facts of this case, as the presiding judge, I am the judge of the law.
There are 6 alternates.
You must accept as correct the law as I stated to you, then deliberate and decide. I cannot tell you what the facts are.
Maybe everybody's at home to watch us.
Disagree with me as to what the law is.
People are like, I don't want to drive in. I want to stay in my slippers.
Follow the law as I stated
and watch on stream.
To you.
Why wouldn't you want to watch it on stream? Go to the bathroom when you want. You don't have to sit in hard chairs.
Facts as you find them to be, the laws I give it to you.
Nancy, it's a commentary channel. I will be commenting.
The case.
But this is streaming all over the place without commentary.
Until I tell you that it's time to do so, you cannot discuss the case with anyone, including your fellow jurors. You cannot discuss the case with family, friends, or anyone else.
Opening instructions.
The attorneys in the case, you cannot discuss it with them or any parties or anyone else.
'Cause why wouldn't you?
That might be connected with the case.
These are standard opening statements.
Should you discover that a fellow juror is violating that oath
You
and
must
that
tell
order,
them.
you are to bring that to my attention. It's also it's vital that you do not seek information outside of the courtroom.
The jurors
during
can't
the
watch
case.
this.
That means that you're not to search internet websites, watch television
fair.
reports, news reports, any other form of social
Normally-
media accounts of the case, because you are sworn to decide this case based on the facts as you determine them to be, based on evidence presented in the case, as well as the law as I give it to you. Now, later in the process, I will appoint one of you to serve as the foreperson of the jury. And that person will have the responsibility of serving as the spokesperson for the
The
jury.
spokesperson, I
That
love
person
it.
will have the responsibility of
Asking questions.
presiding over the jury deliberations. And that person will have the responsibility of completing the verdict form representing the unanimous verdict
And
of
again,
the jury.
These are standard jury instructions.
In just a moment, the Attorney General will make an opening statement.
I am
in
going to
which
transpose
he will
Attorney General
explain
for
issues
prosecution
as
for district attorney. I
he
try not
sees
to,
it, or as the
but this
Attorney
is
General
being handled
sees it.
by the Attorney General's office, not the local
Following that,
solicitor's
the
office.
defense counsel will have that
And
same
that
opportunity.
attorney is covering
Then we'll
all the
begin
Murdaugh
with
indictments. He's like the Murdaugh
presentation
special
of
prosecutor.
testimony from witnesses. I look forward to working
I
with
would-
you
if
in
I'm the
this
defense, I
case
wouldn't want
and
Buster
to,
sitting in.
Keep the case moving
Buster's on the witness list.
as
I wouldn't want him sitting in for opening.
reasonable as we
I
can
wouldn't want him
keep it
watching anything.
moving,
He's not allowed to watch other
but we
witnesses.
will not rush, but take the time necessary to have this case fully presented to you.
We will not
We now
rush.
proceed to opening statements.
We now
By
proceed.
state.
The
Thank you, Your Honor.
state,
May it please the court.
all right. Starting with Prosecutor Creighton Waters. Now we get a bigger view of the courtroom. We will not see the jurors.
On the evening
We should see Creighton.
of June 7th, 2021,
Damn it, that audio sucks.
at the defendant's property off Moselle Road in Colleton County,
Here we go.
his son Paul Murdaugh
Somebody take a
was
time
standing in a
check.
small feed room and some kennels they had on the property. About 8:50 p.m., and the defendant over there, Alec Murdaugh, took a 12-gauge shotgun and shot him in the shoulder, in the chest and the shoulder
Woo!
with buckshot.
He's just coming in
The
hot.
evidence is going to show it was a 1,000,000 to 1 shot. He could have survived that, but after that, another shot went up under his head and did catastrophic damage
Oh shit. It did blow off the
to
back
his
of his head.
brain and his head.
Shit.
The evidence is going to show that Paul collapsed right outside that feed room. And just moments later, he picked up a .300 Blackout, which is a type of ammunition, but an AR-style rifle. And the evidence is going to show that the family had multiple weapons throughout the property. Picked up that .300 Blackout rifle and opened fire on his wife, Maggie, just feet away near some sheds that used to be a hangar. Pow, pow. 2 shots, abdomen in the leg, and took her down.
Oh,
And
this
after
is-
that, there were additional shots, including 2 shots to the head that, again, did catastrophic damage.
This is the court reporter.
Killed her instantly. The evidence is going to show that neither Paul nor Maggie had any defensive wounds. Neither one of them had any
They didn't
defensive
have
wounds.
any time. That's
That they
interesting.
Didn't see a threat coming from their attacker.
That's exactly right.
And the evidence is also going to show that both Maggie and Paul were shot at extremely close range. The evidence is going to show it's called stippling. It's almost like a tattoo, that when you get shot very close to a weapon, it leaves marks that the forensic
Hot.
pathologist can see.
From the
They were
gases.
shot at close range and they did not have defensive wounds.
Indicates it's not a stranger. That's what you argue.
And the evidence is going to show that the defendant, Alec Murdaugh over there, told anyone who would listen that he was never at those kennels. But the evidence is also going to show
Oh, what's he got in his
from
hand?
these things that every one of us, most of us carry around in our pocket,
Cell phone evidence.
that he was there.
The cell
He was
phone.
there just minutes before, with Maggie and Paul, just minutes before their cell phones go silent forever and ever.
Before their cell phones go silent
Despite what
forever.
he told people, I was never at the kennels, the cell phones are going to show otherwise.
That's powerful.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Creighton Waters. I'm with the Attorney General's office, and I'll be the lead prosecutor. I introduced myself before. With me is David Fernandez, Savannah Gow, John Metters, Don Zelinka, John Conrad, and Johnny James. A lot of lawyers. This is a big case. It's a very complicated case, and that's why there's so many people working on it. Sitting back in the row, we have David Owen, who's the lead
evidence
investigator.
I wanted was the
We
cell
have
phone
Lieutenant
evidence.
Charles Gent.
That's what
who's
I
one of the
wanted.
agents,
I've been saying for
Special Agent
weeks.
Ryan Kelly and Special Agent Peter Rudolphy. Some of the
What
agents that are working on the case.
does the cell
as well
phone
as
say?
Investigator Isaac Toledo is working on the case as
The
well.
cell phone
There's
says
some of the
he
witnesses
was
that
there
you'll hear from.
For
As
moments
we go through this case.
before Maggie and
The
Paul
judge
were
talked to you
silenced
a little
forever.
bit about him being the judge of the law. And he gives you the law. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the legal concepts before I turn back to those facts. Just remember, though,
the
he's
evidence
the
I
judge of
wanna
the
see
law.
most.
So you take what he says, but I'm going to explain to you some of the legal issues from my perspective before we talk a little bit more about the evidence in the case. And the first thing is right before you went to lunch, y'all all took an oath.
Oh yes, I said it on court TV. multiple
Everybody in
times.
this courtroom who's got involvement in this case takes an oath. You know, attorneys take an oath to become an attorney, take
Just
another
like he
oath to become a
should've.
prosecutor, judge takes another oath to become a judge, witnesses take oath on the stands, law enforcement take oaths to become law enforcement, but y'all took an oath as well. And
This
the
is gonna
reason
be a
why
hard case.
Is that y'all have the most important job in this courtroom. Everyone
No.
raised your hand and
He's
said
excited.
that you would well and truly try
He,
this case.
that's not nerves.
And it's
That's
the most
excitement.
important job here because, like the
It's
judge
the
said,
same-
he's the judge of the law, but y'all are the judge of the facts.
Yeah.
Y'all are going to listen to what comes from that witness stand.
Maybe everybody who would be in the
judge
courtroom is just here.
Those facts, but you also have to be mindful of that oath. That oath requires you to do that hard job, to make that decision, to call the strike when you see it. It's the same oath. It's just as important as any other oath. This might be the most important in this courtroom. The judge mentioned reasonable doubt, and he's exactly right. It's the state's burden to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt. That is a cornerstone of our country. I wouldn't have it any other way. It's a burden we welcome. It's what we want. It's a system that has been well
No time
tested and
limit.
true, and we take that burden.
He's spending
to
a little
prove
time
the
telling
case
them about their
beyond a
job
reasonable doubt.
and their
I wanna
duty
remind
and the burden.
everyone that the emphasis is on reasonable. Okay, it's not any doubt, it is reasonable doubt. Reasonable doubt is often defined, and again, you listen to the judge how
Civil.
he defines it, but reasonable
Civil
doubt
attorney.
is a doubt that would cause a reasonable person to hesitate to act. To hesitate to act. And when you hear the evidence coming from this stand about this particular case, I submit to you, you won't hesitate to act. Again, remember the
That was a good
emphasis is on
tie around.
reasonable and reasonable doubt. The judge mentioned the charges, and there are 4 of them.
Trial. It's like
First
playing-
indictment accuses Alec Murdaugh, to which he's pled not guilty, but it accuses him of murdering Maggie Murdaugh. The second indictment accuses him of murdering Paul Murdaugh. The third indictment accuses him of possessing a firearm during the commission of a violent crime, that being the murder of Maggie Murdaugh. And the last one accuses him of possessing a firearm during the commission of a violent crime, and that being the murder of Paul Murdaugh. And what does that mean? What is murder? Well, the judge again is going to
Yes, I
instruct you.
can. There we
It
go.
is the unlawful killing of another
Thank you, Chad.
with malice aforethought.
He's defining the
And
crime.
what is malice? Malice is a mental state.
The sound
That's
just changed.
ultimately going to be for y'all to determine as to what was going through Alec Murdaugh's mind when he committed these crimes.
They just
What is
dialed in the
malice?
sound a bit.
Malice has often been defined as the intentional doing of a wrongful act without just cause or excuse. It is the intent to inflict an injury under circumstances that the law would presume an evil intent.
He's defining what they're going to have to decide.
And when you look at the circumstances of the crime, when you look at what led up to this crime, the evidence is going to show
Evil intent's
there was
interesting
malice
language
aforethought.
for malice aforethought.
What does that mean? It means it has to exist at the moment you commit that crime. It doesn't have to be planned. It doesn't have to be planned for any long period of time. It just has to exist a split second before the crime
You have to
is committed.
decide to act, not trip.
When you see this
pull the
crime,
trigger.
you
You
hear
have to
all the
decide to act.
circumstances. The evidence is going to show that forethought existed for a while.
Thanks for reminding me.
It existed for a while in the
You know,
mind.
we're
of that
professionals.
You're also going to hear about circumstantial evidence. And a lot of times people hear, oh, it's just a circumstantial case. But the law says otherwise. The law says that circumstantial evidence is just as good as direct evidence. And that's the difference between the two. Direct evidence is supposedly about to storm out here, from what I'm told. Direct evidence is if it's sunny outside.
He's going to use the
witness
jury
goes
instruction on the
outside,
weather.
it's sunny, and they come in here and they get on that witness stand, and because they saw it raining, they sit on the stand and said, I was just outside and I saw it raining. I saw it raining. That's direct evidence. They actually saw it raining. But to give you an example of what circumstantial evidence
Cheese and salami
is
my
if
lunch
the
most
witness
days in trial.
goes into a room where all the curtains are drawn. And when they go into that room, it's sunny outside and everything's dry.
Circumstantial
And while
evidence
they're in that room,
is just
they see
as
it
valid
darken
as
behind the
direct
shades.
evidence.
They hear thunder. They hear the wind blowing.
Thunder.
They hear the sound of raindrops.
The reason
on
they
the
use
roof,
this example is because the
and then
model
they
jury
open up the
instructions
door,
use
and it's
this
not
example
raining,
in the
but
jury
everything is
instructions.
wet. There's puddles in the driveway. There's puddles in the street. There's
So,
puddles in the yard. There's limbs down
That's
all
why
over
they
the
were
ground.
explaining it this way.
And then they come in here and say, yeah, it was raining.
So this is part of,
Didn't actually see it raining, but those
Yes, it is a standard
circumstances are
instruction.
beyond any reasonable doubt that it was actually raining.
that's used like nationally.
Now, I guess it's possible that somebody could have been standing outside their window and beating a drum to sound like thunder and blowing a fan to make it seem like it was the wind and somehow got enough water to coat the entire neighborhood. But that's not a reasonable.
Reasonable.
Everybody
not
understand that
reasonable.
distinction? That's not a reasonable.
This attorney general has been
Another thing.
an attorney for over
this
20
is
years,
crucial, what you're gonna
does a
do
lot of
is
white collar
determine the
cases, and is
case.
doing all of the Murdaugh
Determine
cases.
credibility or the believability of
Credibility of
witnesses.
witnesses. So he's going through the jury instructions
Your
that matter.
job to look at the evidence, the exhibits in the case, but also the witnesses and decide if it's truthful, if you believe it, if you can rely on it. And the judge is going to instruct you that you can believe one witness against many or many witnesses against one. You can believe all the witnesses' testimony or part of the witnesses' testimony. It's up to you, first individually and then as a product of your deliberations.
It's like they can
What you're
decide if
required
somebody's
to do
lying and
there
render a verdict on
is
it,
just
and it's
rely on that good old-fashioned common
unquestionable.
sense. Does it all fit together? Is it corroborated? Does it fit with what you would expect? Does it fit with what you expect how real people would act?
The AG has become the
Does it
Murdaugh
seem
man.
real?
Yep.
Does something seem a little off? Does something seem a little off?
He definitely should have woke them up after. This definitely woke
You're gonna
them up.
see-
This jury is riveted.
Video statements of Alec Murdaugh.
Janie, sometimes I miss it too.
You're gonna
That's why I
see
watch it.
Body-worn camera of him at the scene when law enforcement arrives.
I love it too.
And hear what he says. And hear what he says about that night. You're going to hear 3 recorded statements on video that he gave with law enforcement, and you're going to hear
3 on
how
video.
things progress, about what he says and what he says he did that night. Watch those closely.
I will be.
Expressions.
Start with that. Start with
Listen to
that.
what he's
Start with
saying.
that.
Listen to what he's not saying.
Start with that tomorrow.
Use that common sense. Does this seem right?
Listen to what he's not
Does
saying.
something seem a little off? Something seems a little off.
Though you can't prosecute someone on
mentioned-
something seems a little off.
That Maggie was killed with a .300 blackout rifle, an AR style rifle that chambered in .300 blackout ammunition. And you're going to hear evidence that back in Christmas of 2016, Alec Murdaugh over there bought 2 .300 blackout AR style rifles.
Ooh, now we know more.
And then not long after that, one of them went missing from Paul's truck. And time went by, and in April of 2018, Alec Murdaugh replaced that rifle and bought another one. 3 total blackout rifles that they had. One of them went missing years ago, and a replacement was bought. You're going to hear evidence that Paul and his friend were using that replacement gun. They were standing right outside the side door to the gun room of the house, and they were sighting it in, firing down into a field. And the cases were ejecting. The cases are the empty shell from a bullet, and they were ejecting out into the flower bed right there. And then there's a range across the street, and they shot it there, and there's cases ejected there as well. And they were shooting that third replacement gun just weeks prior to the murders. Prior to June 7th, 2021, when Maggie and Paul were murdered. And you're going to hear forensic evidence that the cases that were found in that flower bed and the cases that were found across the street at that range were ejected out of the same weapon that fired all the cases that were around Maggie's dead body, that killed her. It was a family weapon that killed Maggie Murdaugh.
That's a good line.
And you're going to hear evidence that of those 3 blackouts that Alec Murdaugh purchased, when law enforcement arrives at the scene on June 7th, 2021, he can only account for one of them.
And it's not the murder weapon.
And that replacement gun is nowhere to be found. You're also going to hear evidence that the type of ammunition, the exact brand, the exact model of ammunition that was used to kill Maggie, S&B, 300 blackout ammunition, and 147 grain bullets.
The ammo they
that
used.
exact ammunition, boxes, empty boxes of that ammunition, is found all over the property. The very same brand and model of ammunition that was used to kill her is found at multiple locations throughout the property.
Ammo just all over the place? Okay.
You're also going to hear evidence, the same thing about the shotgun shells that killed Paul. That federal double-aught buckshot unfired rounds were found on the property, as well as Winchester #2 turkey legs. The 2 rounds.
They call it the Winchester #2 turkey legs? That's the ammo name?
Family weapon, same ammunition.
Murdaugh's between his attorneys. Family
You're
ammo,
also going to hear evidence
For family
that about
guns.
a week after the murders,
which he should have said. Family
Mr.
ammo for family
Alec
guns
Murdaugh's
used by a family
father
member to
had
kill
died,
them.
Mr. Randolph. And about a week after the murders, he shows up early in the morning at his parents' home, where his mother still is in late-stage Alzheimer's, on Alameda in Hampton. It's uncharacteristic for him to show up early, uncharacteristic for him to show up at all like that. And he comes in, and he's carrying something in a blue tarp, and he takes it upstairs.
Ooh.
And eventually law enforcement finds out about that. And they go upstairs, and they find a wadded up, very, very large raincoat in a blue color. Could look like a tarp. And you're going to hear evidence that it was coated with gunshot residue on the inside.
Because he was wearing something over his clothes. It wasn't just the white shirt. So they have the raincoat. I thought there was a raincoat.
Gunshot residue. You're going to hear that there was gunshot residue on Alec at the scene. You're going to hear the evidence that there was gunshot residue on the seatbelt of the car he was driving.
I didn't know that.
Evidence that when law enforcement got to the scene, he had gone and gotten a shotgun, Paul's shotgun, and that Maggie's DNA was on that shotgun. You're going to hear other evidence from DNA, gunshot residue, firearms examiners. There's going to be a lot of forensic evidence in this case.
Yeah,
I'm
there
not going to
is.
get into every single bit of it right now, but I will say
Phones!
the key piece of forensic evidence that you're going to hear in this case is the cell phone evidence.
Yes.
Alec's cell phone, Maggie's cell phone, Paul's cell phone.
This is exactly what I wanted to know.
You know, this is all amazing technology that most of us carry around in our pockets.
Y'all being tracked all the
It
time.
really allows us to do a lot of things and to get a lot done. But this cell phone keeps track of who we're talking to,
Where you
who
are.
we're calling, who we're texting, whenever we access apps. And every time you do that,
Your
there's
GPS
a record
location.
kept in this phone unless it's deleted somehow. And if you're using certain apps, you can even get GPS information where you were when you did that that's stored on these phones. You're going to hear evidence about that. You're going to hear evidence that when you make a call and it pings off of cell towers, the location information can be gathered from that as well. And so it allows an investigation to take this and piece together
Where
what
you were.
someone was doing on a particular day, and not only what they were doing, but who they were interacting with and how they were interacting with them. This is going to be crucial evidence for you to consider.
That's what I wanted to
You're
know.
going to hear that
I'll tell you about that at the break.
particularly Alec and Paul, but also Maggie, were prolific cell phone users, to the point where Paul's friends even had a nickname for him about his cell phone usage.
Was it Dill?
Before I talk more about that, there's 3 family properties I need to talk about, okay? The first one I've mentioned is Moselle. Moselle in Colleton County. It's called Moselle, it's off Moselle Road, but everybody refers to it as Moselle. And that property is a large, this is a lot of acres.
1,700 acre
There's
estate.
a driveway that goes to that main house, but it used to be an airstrip, and there's an airstrip that goes down, and then
What?
down the way, just less than a third of a mile away, just a 3-minute walk, 4-minute walk,
Airstrip?
45-second drive, is the kennels and the shed that used to be a hangar where Paul and Maggie were murdered. So the main house is just less than a third of a mile away. You can see the kennels from the main house. You can see the main house from the kennels. The family also had a house in Edisto at the beach. And the evidence is going to show that that is where Maggie preferred to stay, particularly in the summer months. She liked the beach. She was not a hunter. She didn't want to be at Moselle. She didn't want to be at the lodge where it was hot and buggy. She liked being in Edisto.
So why was she at Moselle? Was she
And
lured
also,
there?
I've already mentioned the house in Almeida.
Wouldn't she
which is
rather be at the
where
beach?
His parents' home on June 7th, 2021.
So in
There's
June, why
evidence
is
that
she
his
at
father
Moselle?
Went into the hospital and the prognosis was not good. And in fact, he died a few days later. And his mother was in late stage Alzheimer's, and that house being cared for by a caretaker. You're going to hear from that caretaker.
Mr. Waters,
Yes, sir.
can we pause for a moment? We'll be at ease in just a moment.
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
There's an objection. Either there's an issue with the jury or there's an objection. They're excusing the... Everybody stood, which leads me to believe the jury is being excused. But that's not necessarily the case. Is he turning around to talk to somebody? All right, we might look for a feed with a bigger one. We know the caretaker is going to be a witness. Hold on, I'm going to make a note. This is Buster back here with the bright red hair. So I imagine you've got some family in here. That looks like Court TV's Chanley Painter, but I can't quite tell from this. That's going to be Buster. I'm sure we'll get a breakdown of who's in court and who's not in court, but that looks like Chanley. I'm wondering why they're taking a moment. That's unusual during opening statements. So we'll see if we can get a different, let's go peek around at what the feeds have. I don't think the court's trying to break the feed. I don't know why they're standing in the well to talk, and I'm not quite sure what's going on. So, but it doesn't look like the judge is talking to the prosecutor. It doesn't look like the defense is talking to the judge. So it's interesting to me that there's a pause here, and we don't really know why. It might have been something that the courtroom needed. Anything is possible, but it's very, very interesting. Okay, let me tell you why I'm interested in the cell phone. In the commentary that I've given to Court TV a couple times, and I've said this on my own content as well, what I want to know, because Alec Murdaugh says he has a alibi. He says he was visiting with his mother. He says he was on the phone the whole time on the way back and didn't have time to commit the murders because he wasn't even there. What I wanted to know was, when did Maggie and Paul stop using their cell phones? That is going to give us a very strong indication of when the murders were. Now, the coroner will have a range of time, but when they stopped using their cell phone, especially with Paul, who's younger, when they stop using their cell phone is a very important timing. So when they stop using their cell phone and where Alec Murdaugh's cell phone is juxtaposed to when Paul and Maggie stop using their cell phones. And he said this, it was silent forever. So I am very interested to see it. The judge is coming back onto the bench. So the judge stopped and left the bench. We don't know why, but is coming back. I'm going to look and see if any feeds have a different angle that we like. But I am prioritizing closed captioning and me not being distracted by ticker feeds. Oh, I turned the volume off. Awful me. Terrible. Bad. Bad
We're talking
YouTuber.
about the three family properties, Moselle.
We've resumed.
The main house and the kennels / sheds. The main house has a driveway, but the kennels also have a driveway. And the evidence is going to show that that was actually as commonly used as the main driveway. In fact, the mailbox is by the kennel driveway.
The other son was not there.
Paul and Maggie were murdered. I told you that you're going to hear evidence that Maggie did not like being in Moselle as much as she liked Evanston, the beach house.
She liked the beach.
With that, on June 7th, 2021, she came back to Moselle. And the evidence is going to show that she arrived about 8:15. And the evidence is going to show that from the cell phones that Paul was there at the house, at the main house. And Alec Murdaugh himself says that they ate dinner. And the autopsy is going to reflect both Paul and Maggie having similar stomach contents, indicating that they
ate dinner,
shared a meal together. About 8:30.
Here's our timeline.
15 minutes after they arrived, Paul's phone starts moving towards the kennels. You're going to hear evidence again that the defendant said he was never at those kennels, that he was napping after they ate, and he was at the main house and never went there. You're also going to hear evidence about how much Alec used his own cell phone, and it would be unusual for him to be anywhere without his cell phone. At 8:44,
I'm interested in this
55
timeline
seconds,
very much.
Paul recorded a video.
Snapchat.
He was down in the kennels because he had been talking to a friend of his, and you're going to hear from this friend because his friend's dog was in the kennels and they thought there was something wrong with the tail. And Paul was recording a video of it to send to his friend. 8:44 and 55 seconds. And on that video, and you'll see that video, and you'll hear from witnesses that identify Paul's voice, Maggie's voice, and Alec's voice.
There it is.
Anyone who would listen, he was never there. At 8:44 and 55 seconds, there's a video. The evidence will show that he was there. He was at the murder scene with the two victims. And more than that, just over 3 minutes later, 8:49 and 1 second,
8:49.
Paul's phone locks forever. He never reads
chilling.
another text. He never sends another text. He doesn't answer calls.
That's it.
3 minutes after that video has the defendant at the murder scene with the two victims, Paul's phone goes silent forever. And in fact, another communication comes into the very friend that he was talking to the dog at 8:49 and 35 seconds, just 35 seconds later, and he doesn't answer it. He never answers another thing forever and ever. And on top of that, Maggie's phone locks at 8:49 and 31 seconds, around that same time. And she
It's a good
never
timeline.
answers another text, never sends another text,
It's a powerful timeline.
makes another phone call, never receives another phone call. 3 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. 3 minutes.
And they're
After
gone.
a video shows he's at the scene with the victims, and he told everybody he was never there. Never there. Credibility, ladies and gentlemen.
3 minutes and they're gone. And you've got a teen who was in the middle of a
So what happens
conversation.
after that?
Powerful. In the
Well,
middle of a conversation,
You'll hear
stops
evidence that
answering.
Alex's phone was
Powerful.
conspicuously didn't have a lot of activity from about 8:09 p.m. until 9:02 p.m. And if he was at the kennels, which the evidence will show, why is his phone not with him? Why is it not showing activity?
Why is his phone off?
But you will hear that at 9:02, all of a sudden his phone does start to pick up activity. At 9:02, he calls, he starts moving. At 9:04, he calls Maggie's phone. Doesn't answer, of course. Doesn't answer.
He knows
He
she's
calls
looking
his
too.
father, Randolph, who's in the hospital. Doesn't appear there's an answer there. He calls Maggie again at 9:06. Remember, he's just a third of a mile away. You can see it. At 9:06, she doesn't answer. At 9:06, he turns on his car, his Suburban, and he texts Maggie that he's going, be right back. I'm going to go check on Mom.
So he's leaving after the
And he
murders
doesn't
took
drive
place.
down to the kennels, even though that's where the mailbox is. That's a common place to be, even though you can see it. He's called his wife 2 times and texted her, and she hasn't responded.
And he doesn't go look.
But he didn't just drive down there and say, hey, I'm heading. You guys want to go? What's up? What's up? Right there. You can see it. He then drives to Alameda.
Then he
His
drives.
mom's suffering from Alzheimer's. And the caretaker is there.
After they
He
stop
starts
responding on
calling
their
people.
phones.
He's talking to people.
It's a hard
It's up to you
timeline.
to decide whether or not he's trying to manufacture an alibi. He gets there to Alameda. You'll hear evidence about whether or not that was usual. You'll hear evidence about how he was acting when he got there. And he's only there for 20 minutes.
Powerful
He's
timeline.
back underway at 9:44. And he makes more phone calls on the way back. Calling friends, calling people who will answer.
Publicly,
You decide whether
it was
he's trying to create
disclosed
an alibi.
that it was later. But they might have
He
known
gets back
that it wasn't.
to Moselle at 10:01.
I've got thoughts on that.
And he calls 911 at 10:06.
If you use
Listen
your
to
phone a
that
lot and then
911
stop,
call.
people will lose their minds.
Listen to what he says.
He's almost done.
Listen to what explanations he may offer.
Listen to the lies. That's what he's
You're
saying.
going to hear that 911 call, but you're also going to see the body-worn camera of the officers who arrived at the scene. The video camera they wear, so it records what they're doing. And you're going to see what he did to Maggie and Paul. It's going to be gruesome. There's no other way around it. It's what he did. You're going to see crime scene photographs. You're going to see the traumatic injuries that were suffered. You're going to hear from a pathologist, a doctor who will examine the injuries. It's going to be gruesome. There's no other
At
way
least he's
around it.
giving them the heads up that it's going to be awful. Because it's going to be awful.
On that 911 call and on the body-worn cameras, pay attention to what he says. Look at how he's acting. But he says within a few minutes of each one of those, he says, this is about the boat case.
There it is.
This is about the boat case. And you're going to hear
About the boat
some
case.
of what was going on in Alex Murdaugh's life leading up to that day. Stuff that happened that very day, stuff that was leading up, a perfect storm that was gathering, much like the storms that are coming outside today. Listen for that evidence. Listen to that gathering storm that all came to a head on June 7th, 2021, the day the evidence will show he killed Maggie and Paul.
The gathering storm. That's interesting.
This has been a long, exhaustive investigation. And it's going to be a fairly long trial because it's complicated. It's a journey.
I mean, a few weeks is not that
There's a
long.
lot of aspects to this case. There's a lot of factors to this case. But like a lot of things that are complicated, when you start to put them all together, piece them together like a puzzle, all of a sudden the picture emerges and it's really simple.
Creighton, we can see your text, bro.
It's really simple.
The jury's like, is he bringing home dinner?
Once
I
we
got
get to the end of
questions.
that journey, and you have a chance to deliberate, the evidence is going to be such that you're going to reach the inescapable conclusion that Alec murdered Maggie and Paul, that he was the storm, that the storm was coming for them, and the storm arrived on June 7th, 2021, just like the storms that are heading here right now, that they died as a result of it, beyond any reasonable doubt. Thank you.
That's the end of the state's opening statement. We're going to get the opening statement from the defense. I'm interested to see.
Court, Your Honor.
That was a powerful opening. The timeline was important. We now know a lot more about the cell phone evidence, and that cell phone evidence, I think, could carry this case. It's going to show where he was and where he wasn't. And if he turned it off, it's going to show
My
that.
name is Dick Harpootlian.
Don't introduce yourself first.
Myself to y'all and our attorneys, the three other attorneys, Jim Griffin,
How long was that?
Barber, Margaret Fox. It is our honor to represent Alec Murdaugh,
Because we believe he's
or
innocent.
Murdaugh, depending on how you pronounce it.
I like that it's either way.
I say it's our honor because I submit to you what you have heard from the Attorney General as facts are not. They're his theories, his conjecture. Now stand up. This is Alec Murdaugh. And Alec was the loving father of Paul and the loving husband of Maggie.
Loving father and husband.
You're not going to hear a single witness say that their relationship, Maggie and Alex's relationship, were anything other than loving. You're going to hear about how they went to a baseball game the weekend before. You're going to hear about their relationship. You're going to see texts and emails indicating a loving
Sit down, dude. He's like, can I sit down now? Yeah, sit down.
Paul, the apple of his eye. You're going to see a video somewhere between 7:30 and 8 o'clock the night of the murders with Paul and Alec riding around looking at some trees they planted. It's a Snapchat that Paul sent to other people because the trees were not planted very well. They were cantilevering over. They're laughing. They're having a good time.
Doesn't mean Alec
That would
wasn't
be-
plotting to kill him.
About an hour before, the Attorney General says he swatted them. When I say he swatted them, when they were swatted, and no question, Paul Murdaugh was
Graphic.
shot
This is going to be graphic.
twice with buckshot, 12-gauge buckshot, once in the chest. And by the way, that shot would indicate it was in the chest and came out under his arm, like somebody that might have been holding up their hands. So when he says no defensive wounds, he perhaps was being held at shotgun. I mean, I can make the same sort of speculation that the Attorney General can, because that's all he's doing is speculating. What we do know is 12-gauge, fairly close range shot to the chest. He must have been turned because it comes out under his arm. There's wadding, if you're familiar with a shotgun, under his arm. The second shot ended up, and there's going to be some question about the direction of that shot, but ended up entering his skull cavity, and the gases from that shot literally exploded his head like a watermelon hit with a sledgehammer.
Oh, God.
All that was left was the front of his face. Everything else was
Harpootlian.
gone. His brain exploded out of his head, hit the ceiling in the shed, and dropped to his feet. Horrendous. Horrible.
I told you this was going to be
Butchering.
graphic.
So to find Alan Murdaugh guilty of murdering his son, you're going to have to accept that within an hour of having a extraordinarily bonding, you can see it in the Snapchat, that he executes him in a brutal fashion. Not believable. Not believable. Now, Maggie is shot running. There's no defensive wounds because she's shot running, and after she falls to the ground and has one bullet that has hit her and probably traveled up and hit her brain, she's on the ground, and whoever the perpetrator was walked up, took that AR, and put one in the back of her head. Executed. Executed. Why? This is going to be interesting because we don't know why. He doesn't know why. He's got theories of this and theories of that, but why? Number one. Number two, what was it in that hour between when he's yucking it up, the call? And let me say this to you. His record, he was interviewed, he comes home and finds, there's no question about this, they've got telemetry from his car. He left the house at 9:06, returns at 10:01 after seeing his mother who has dementia. Now remember, that day, his father, who is dying, is taken to the hospital. Mom's home alone with the housekeeper. Perfectly reasonable for him to want to go see her. And later than usual. Because his father's not there. He's in the hospital. He dies 2 days later. His father dies 2 days later. So the question is, if he leaves at 9:06 and he's back at 10:01, he literally, I mean, and he can account, the cars and the cell phone records account for where he was between 9:06 and 10:01. Now the cell phone records, and you're going to hear this from their own experts, are incomplete. They're incomplete.
That's interesting.
And we're to submit, one of the reasons they're incomplete, and by the way, how do they find Maggie's phone? Maggie's phone was thrown out on the side of the road about a quarter of a mile away from, a little bit more, maybe a half a mile, from the Moselle property.
Was it in the direction he was driving afterwards,
They
though?
found it by using Find My iPhone. And the way they did that, they had to open it or have access. Who gave them the code to open the phone? Now, Murdaugh. And it's not destroyed, it's just thrown on the side of the phone. What you're also going to see
Who picked up
is
her
that Alec
phone?
Murdaugh was calling that phone at 9:06.
Yeah, that's what they said. We all agree on
As
that.
he leaves the house, he did call her twice and texted her. And we also know that at 9:06, as he cranks his car, as the cell phone records show that, as the telemetry data from shows the cell phone linking up with the car, that phone is being thrown on the side of the road almost a half a mile away. Now
At
that
what time?
is Houdini. That is magic. That is inexplicable. Now, I was making notes while the Attorney General was talking. But let me tell you what is more believable. The night he comes home and
Here's
finds
the
his
defense
wife
theory.
and son butchered. And when I say butchered, you're going to see these photographs.
We're not.
When I see them now, after having
God.
seen them for the last 4 or 5 months, it still shocks me. It
Yeah, it's
still is
awful.
tough to look at. It still bothers me.
It's a little more familiar than some
And
courts
he
would let
comes
people
home
be.
and finds his son laying in his own blood with his brain laying at his feet, shot to hell. He walks over, he checks to see if there's any life there, although, I mean, he's seeing his brain laying outside his body, he knows there's nothing there. He goes over and tries to get a pulse out of Maggie. No pulse there. Calls 911. I want you to hear that 911 tape. It is a man hysterical, in grief, trying to figure out what's going on. And he tells the 911 operator that he's concerned, and he drives back up to the house. And by the way, you can't see, I've been out there, you can't see the shed where you might see the top of the shed.
Oh, a
There are
little
pine
shade of the
trees
prosecution.
between the front porch or the porch on the house and the dog pens. And it's not a third of a mile, maybe by the way the crow flies, but it takes a little bit longer to drive down there. And this is not unusual.
I've been up there.
For them to communicate by cell phone or text, even when they're all on the same property. It's 1,100 acres. Big property. They hunted it.
The news says 1,700.
So
Just saying.
what I'm trying to say to you is that the Attorney General has given you his view. And again, you can't see the shed. And I'm going to ask the judge at some point during this trial to ask you, the jury, to be able to go to the scene.
What?
So you can see it. You can understand the proportions.
They
You
want
can
them to go to
understand the detail.
Moselle? Jury view?
Because the facts are what matter here. The facts.
Yeah, the
Let me
facts
give you
are what
another
matter.
fact. You're going to hear their witnesses
Field trip.
explain the catastrophic injuries to Paul. That his head literally exploded.
This might be news to the
And
judge.
whoever shot him with that shotgun was probably no more than 3 feet away.
So they agree it was
Maybe-
close range.
Maybe closer, maybe a little further away. His head exploded. You would be covered in blood from head
There we
to
go.
foot. Head to foot. In blood.
Not necessarily if it's going, sorry, but if it's going back,
They
not
seized his
necessarily.
clothes that night. Sled did. And they well, first of all, you're going to see in the videos
Not a movie.
from the officers that arrived that night, there's no blood on him. They didn't find any blood on him.
What time did they arrive?
Testing indicated 12 different places on his shirt and pants. No human blood detected. Period.
How could he have knelt to see if they were okay? If there was that
You'll
much
see
blood.
pictures. White t-shirt, no blood on it. Those are facts. Those aren't theories. Those are facts. Another fact
I think it cuts both ways with the blood with the raincoat.
that is, I think, the reason we're here today.
I think it cuts both ways.
When you hear those questions on the videotape.
What
on the
time did
night,
police arrive?
He's found his wife and son brutally butchered. You can hear on
He's
the
gonna say
911
butchered a
tape,
lot.
he is hysterical. He comes in and out. It's consistent. If any of you
He doesn't come in and
ever,
out.
you got to use your experience as part of this deliberation process. Your human experience. If you've ever suffered a catastrophic loss of a friend or a family member, it's numbing. The minute you find out, or if you see them dead,
Is he
it's
beside
numbing.
himself?
You go into shock.
Or is he numb?
So anything he said that night is in the context of just an hour or two before finding his wife and son butchered. He drove back up to the house while he was on 911 saying, I got to get a gun, that whoever did this might be out there. And he gets a gun. But what's fascinating about that is he gets a 12 gauge shotgun and he grabs some shells. These people hunt a lot. They have guns everywhere.
These people.
Grabs some shells. He puts a 16 gauge, a 12 gauge, grabbed a 12 gauge shotgun, put a 12 gauge buckshot in, and then he put a 16 gauge buckshot in. That's how shook up he was. Guy hunted all his life, and he put a shell in that he couldn't fire a 16 gauge from a 12 gauge. Makes no sense. He was traumatized. GSR, their own expert at SLED said the amount of particles of GSR are consistent with him going up and picking that shotgun up. They want to talk about GSR? Again, if you fired a shotgun twice and a rifle 6 times, you'd be covered in GSR. Those are the facts. That's not his theory. The facts. Now let's talk a little bit about these ARs. Again, you're going to hear testimony. A lot of guns. They had a gun room.
Where's the gun room?
You know, I don't live in Calhoun County. I live in downtown Columbia. Ain't no gun rooms in downtown Columbia. But apparently, if you live on 1,100 acres and you
17.
hunt deer and you hunt whatever they were planting.
Is he trying to seem folksy?
Quail, I guess.
But apparently, if you
Oh,
live
you
out
have a lot of
there,
guns.
you have guns.
The truth is, in 2017, and you'll hear the testimony, that
Tell us more about the
Alan
gun.
bought 2 blackouts, one for Paul.
Yeah, I don't think it's weird
and
that they
one
have
for
lots of
Buster.
guns.
There's other
He
sons
keeps
sitting
trying to
out
like
in the
apologize for it, but I don't think this jury thinks it's weird that they have
And
guns on a hunting property. There's guns on a hunting property.
Had once his stolen. he bought another one for Paul. Now, Paul was very irresponsible with guns, cars.
So you give him an
He'd
AR?
leave guns around. He'd leave guns in cars. He oftentimes left guns down at the dog pen.
He'd leave guns in
the
cars?
field. Now, I can't tell you whether he was shot with his own weapon or
He's
not.
the
Or
victim.
his mom was shot with his weapon or not. But I can tell you that they weren't shot by Alex. They don't have the guns.
I can't tell
There's
you.
no way to tell conclusively without having the weapons, what weapons those were fired by. And we'll be talking a little bit with the SWAT experts about that. The sort of overarching issue here is
I can't tell you if he was
why
shot with his own gun, but I can tell
murder
you
June
he
7th,
was not shot
2021.
by
Why is it
Alex.
September of 2022 before they charge him?
He didn't say the evidence will show.
What happened that night?
Sounds like
And
vouching.
this is a problem. He's questioned, and the questioning is pretty aggressive. You'll hear it. He's traumatized. They suspect him. They show up. He's got a shotgun. They suspect him, and the next morning, 2 people found butchered. And here in Colleton County.
How many times has he said butchered?
The
Is he
police
trying
announced,
to make them sound like they're
Don't
animals?
there's no danger to y'all. There's nobody out there that could pose a danger to you. Because you see, they decided that night
There's the rush to judgment.
he did it. Without forensics, without cell phones, without any of that. And they've been pounding that square peg in the round hole for the last, well, since June of 2021,
Rush to judgment.
resulting in charges in September of 22. And so, if he felt, and he did, and you'll hear it, the accusatory fashion he's being interviewed in, he may not have dealt all the facts. But by the way, whether he'd been down to the dog pens that night or not, really doesn't matter. Really doesn't matter. Because you're going to see cell phone activity that would be, let me put it to you this way. Paul's phone, 8:50. Maggie's phone, later than that, 8:54. Clearly, is still being used. At 9:06, he's up at the house, getting in the car, cranking it up. to
Cranking
drive
what
over
up?
to see his mom.
Cranking up the car?
He says
What is he driving?
a few hundred yards away. It's a little bit further than that. But the point of the matter is, he would have had to have executed both of them, got back up to the house, got the bloody clothes off, and by the way, they seized his clothes from that night. They've never searched his house for any other clothes that we know of, although that night,
Which is
he gave
interesting.
permission and they got a search warrant. Go to my house. Go look through everything.
That's
Where are the bloody
interesting.
clothes? Where are the bloody clothes? And of course, I would tell you that they
If they
weave
knew
woven
it was
story
him,
together because they want everything
why
to be
didn't they
consistent.
search the
What's
house?
important about that is the judge, and by the way, there's no eyewitness. There's no forensics tying him to the murder. When I say forensics, fingerprints, blood, whatever, tying him to shooting anybody that night. The cell phone records would indicate
If they
he
were
would have
so
had
sure it was him, search the
less
house.
than 10 minutes to kill him, get up to the house,
Ditch the guns.
get in the car and crank it up. He'd
Well,
be
where'd the
covered in
guns go?
blood.
You had to ditch the guns in there somewhere.
Now, if they think he was beginning to establish an alibi, there's no evidence of that. The evidence is consistent with him seeing them earlier at the dog pen. And by the way, that audio they have of him and Maggie, they're talking about one of the dogs killing a chicken. And they were debating whether it was a guinea hen or a chicken. No animosity. Very normal discussion. Paul's very happy. And we know that Paul, after that, is texting back and forth with a girl about going to the movies. Nobody's down there threatening him. Daddy's not pulling out a shotgun and killing him.
Not when he's texting.
For, 10 minutes after that, he's texting this girl.
When is he texting?
So,
What time,
big
Dick?
question. One shooter or two?
9:04?
Two guns, shotgun and an AR. And by the way, Maggie has no defensive wounds because she's running. What's she running from?
The person who just shot her son.
And could you shoot? Typically, she had a little shed right, probably 150 feet
She had a
from
she shed?
the feed room on the other side of a wall.
Wait.
Perhaps she heard the shotgun blast.
I want to know about the she shed.
And saw somebody or two people, and whoever it was opened up. Was there enough time to kill Paul, and then find the AR and then ambush Maggie? Much more likely there were two people, but again, we don't have to prove anything.
Huh. He just slipped that right in there.
Share the framework in which you should examine
I
this.
don't know if that goes against what the judge said.
You have agreed to follow the law, and here's the law. Here is the law.
He slipped that right
He
in.
didn't do it. He is presumed innocent. As you sit there right now,
That's tricky.
as you sit there right now, when you look at him, you have to believe he is innocent.
That was so
He
intentional.
didn't do it. Now, let me tell you, that's so difficult
Tricky.
to do. I get it. And the way maybe the best way to explain it is this. This morning or yesterday, nobody really reads newspapers anymore, but if you were reading the newspaper,
That's a good point.
looking at the internet, and you read the police had arrested somebody for some heinous crime. The natural
Where are you going with
inclination
this?
of everybody, all of y'all, is to say, thank God they caught him or her. Thank God that person is in custody. And you did something that's so natural. We all do it. You presumed the police had arrested the person that committed the crime. You presumed him or her guilty. That is the natural thing to do. And you know what? That's fine for you to do.
Not here.
Any other day except today. Because you took an oath to follow the law. And the law is, he
Presumption of
is
innocence.
innocent. He's presumed innocent.
He wants
That
to
is
say
your
innocent as
presumption.
much
Your
as he can.
mental framework is, he didn't do it. They've got to prove it to me beyond a reasonable doubt.
That's true.
Now, what's even more difficult, and this isn't a contest, this isn't a game,
Butcher
this isn't who wins
innocent.
and who loses.
Butcher innocent
This is about justice.
are his buzzwords.
You know, Oliver Wendell Holmes, one of the justices of the Supreme Court, once said, jury duty is the highest duty a citizen can perform for their country in peacetime. Because you are protecting us from them, from the state, from the government. That's the
Oh, not
foundation
from the
of our
murderers. I thought he
Constitution.
was like from them,
Is
the
that
murderers.
individual
No,
has
no,
a
from
right
the
to be
government.
presumed innocent,
You're
has a
protecting
right
us from the
to a
government.
jury trial, has a right to have his or her peers sit in judgment of.
Big fan of justice.
That's you. And the framework is you presume him innocent, and you cannot convict him until the state proves to you beyond a reasonable doubt of his guilt. And a reasonable doubt is the kind of doubt which would cause an ordinary person to hesitate to act in the more important decisions in their life. Now, what makes this even more complicated is there's no direct evidence. There's no eyewitness. There's no camera. There's no fingerprints. There's no forensics tying him to the crime. None. None. I say that without any fear of contradiction whatsoever. None.
Which is why they talk about the GSR and him
And what the
picking
judge
up
is
a
going to tell
different
you
gun. Is that a
the
manufactured
extent the state
alibi?
relies on circumstantial evidence.
Oh, he's reading the jury
circumstances
instruction.
must be consistent
In
with each
opening.
other, and when taken together, point conclusively
Interesting.
to the guilt of the accused beyond a reasonable doubt. If these circumstances merely portray the defendant's behavior as suspicious, the proof has failed. Now, this smoke they've created is about suspicion. I mean, if you show up at the scene and you got the wife, the wife especially dead, and the guy's got a shotgun, you know, it's pretty logical for the cops to jump to a conclusion. He did it. And the problem is that as they came to that conclusion, they have pounded that square peg in the round hole, and you're going to hear about it. They've ignored some witnesses. For instance, that blue tarp showed up with a blue tarp. That witness who said he showed up with a blue tarp was shown a blue rain jacket that he talked about. Said, that's not it. That's not what he brought here that morning. I mean, I talked to her. She says, no, it was a blue tarp. And what was it?
Oh! An objection!
Indicate.
Objection sustained, emergency.
Objection sustained.
I would tell you that the testimony you're going to hear is inconsistent with the Attorney General's represented to you, based on interviews done by people other than
Ooh!
me.
Spicy.
So
They're trying to keep you in line, Dick.
what I'm telling you is
Just
this,
sneaking stuff in there.
that as you sit here and listen,
He was
every
objected
time
to
there's
for
a witness
misstating
takes that witness stand, that
the
stage
witness.
put up there. You see, you judge the credibility, whether to believe a witness or not believe a witness, whether to believe one witness against many, many against one. You're going to have to evaluate the testimony you hear from this witness stand with a critical eye. Critical eye.
Don't touch the
I mean,
thermostat.
if you've got uncontested scientific evidence, you accept it.
He does like to
I've
wander.
got no problem with that. These cell phone records he keeps talking about, I would say to you, are not necessarily accurate.
This is not necessarily accurate. It's not going to do it.
I will also tell you that there's going to be a bunch of people, and I will, that have been promised something or threatened with something, that may take the witness stand and say something. But I tell you what they're not going to say. They're not going to say they saw him kill him.
Promised what?
They're not going to say
Threatened
that
what?
they were involved in it. They're not going to say anything that would give you a comfort level in their testimony. Now, all of you have indicated that you will follow the law.
Witness is
say
being
this-
promised something?
One last time. He didn't do it. He didn't kill Butcher, his son and wife. And you need to put from your mind any suggestion that he did.
It's not exactly how that works.
You've been picked because you said you could be fair. You were picked because you said you could follow the law. You were picked because Alec Murdaugh believes that you can be fair. Now, if during this process over the next however long we're here,
Whoa, whoa, whoa. What do you mean however long?
I say something or do something, which most certainly based on my career, I will do, that irritates you or angers you.
I will annoy the fuck out of you. Good. Let's get that out. Let's get that out. Let's get that out now.
Don't hold that against Alec. Hold it against me. If I say something that offends you in some way, don't hold that against Alec. Hold it against me. Remember, as you sit there right now, in your mind, he didn't do it. He
is managing
innocent.
expectations. This is an interesting way to bang on about the.
Would require a verdict.
He's like
of
right
not
up
guilty
there
from
on the
you.
jury. This is
That's the law.
a very
That's your oath.
interesting way to get into the presumption of innocence. He didn't do it, and he's couched he didn't do it with presumption. Are we getting to witnesses? Are we doing an instruction then a witness? What are we doing? It's 4:30 on the East.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to send you to the jury room for a break while I discuss scheduling with everyone.
Yeah, what are we doing
Please
next?
do not discuss the case, as I mentioned to
I'll
you
give you a
earlier,
breakdown
you're not
on what I
allowed
think
to
in a
discuss
minute.
the case at all until you've heard the entire case and you've heard the instructions of law. So please go to the jury room.
All right. No. Oh, are they going up so as the jury leaves? No, don't come back. The attorneys are talking scheduling. Don't cut the audio. The attorneys are going to be scheduling. Well, what did y'all think of opening statements? Interesting information. The defense is going to be graphic. We saw that in motions yesterday. We knew the defense was going to be graphic about it. I don't know if that is because they are going to try to take the shock value out of the photos that will be shown to the jury, not us, to the jury. Those are sealed. I don't know if they're trying to take the shock value away from how bad this crime scene is, or if he's trying to get a response from his client, or both. I don't know. Alex just turning around, no cares in the world,
Scheduling,
talking to
you have a
people.
witness you want to call today.
Scheduling.
Your Honor, I think as we have talked to your law clerk, I mean, we do have a witness. Unfortunately, that witness, the main point of that witness would be the body-worn camera, as he is a first responder that arrived at the scene. Unfortunately, the audio does not appear to be working, so I'm informed, despite efforts of courtroom staff and even our IT folks to try to get it going. I've been also told that the company that installed this for the court is not here, and they've been able to do this. So, unfortunately, given the lateness of the hour, which I don't think we could finish him anyway, because the video in and of itself is fairly long.
9:30 tomorrow morning, and they still haven't done whatever you just said.
I will personally come up with a solution to present evidence to this jury, but I think
On a laptop.
I don't even think we could really get him done today anyway if we started, because even the body worn itself is 20, 30 minutes something long, depending on which exhibit we put
We
in.
can watch the video now.
Your Honor, I think this is wise because even if we started right now,
We're done, Your Honor.
Get the whole video played, and I'm going to ask, and I'll tell the Attorney General now, we're going to ask him to play the whole video for completeness, rather than picking out little excerpts.
That's fair.
So that may take 45 minutes.
Any objection to that?
We had prepared excerpts. There's a lot of discussion of law enforcement as they're arriving at the scene and, have theories, but if he wants to play the whole thing, I'm fine with that.
That settles that.
Sure does.
Okay. If you'll bring the jury, I'm going to excuse them to 9:30
9:30 a.m. tomorrow morning.
if they're ready to come in.
The jurors are just like, we just walked back, and now we're back. So we're going to be excused till 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8:30 a.m. Central for witnesses, and it's video day. They better get that tech sorted out because I am ready to see the body-worn camera video. We should not see up close details of the crime scene. That'll be interesting. Thank you, chat, for keeping time. Prosecution took 30 minutes. Defense took 27 minutes, 11 seconds. I mean, they really did say what they need to say, right? They got into everything they needed to get into. So
2 minutes waiting for the jury to get ready to come in.
oh, they're taking a brief break. All right, let me well, they're taking a brief break while the jury comes in. The judge is like, I'm taking a break. Great. It's going to be very early tomorrow for y'all when we start. So we're just gonna wait for the judge to come back and excuse the jury. Y'all ain't right said, I think Dick is trying to be extremely graphic to emotionally manipulate the jury into believing that a husband father couldn't possibly have done it. That is a very, very strong possibility. Saying, look, however, when you shoot someone with buckshot, you don't really have control of what happens next. So, it's butchering for me has a different connotation than shooting someone. So he is trying to get that into it, but somebody shooting someone is different than butchering someone for me. And the jury might not like that. The defense did feel a lot longer. Thank you guys for going over the times in your own time zones. The defense did feel like a while, but the prosecution also had that break in there. So let's see. I'm answering a question. Yes, Miguelina, we'll just make the podcast live. I'm not going to have time to be in the chat to premiere it. So I don't want to premiere it and not be able to be in the chat. So, unless y'all just want to keep chatting. So butchering is the wrong wording, but he might be, again, trying to kind of walk it back. I'll do my summary after they excuse the jury for the day, but he might be trying to distance it. So we will see what happens. 9:30 EST tomorrow morning. So South Carolina's Eastern. So yeah, it's just butchering also makes it less humane. It was interesting that he got into Paul being irresponsible with the guns. He didn't say somebody stole the gun, but he did say Paul he's just an irresponsible kid. And this is what the defense is going to do. They're going to talk about the victims. Paul's irresponsible. These guns just wander off. Who knows how a gun that the family had previously owned found its way back to kill these family members. And we're going to see that because, well, this is the defense, and their job is to put on a vigorous defense for their client. It's interesting that they start with I'm honored to represent him, like lending credibility to their client, lending credibility. See, I'm not afraid of him. I'm um I'm honored to be here with him. I am not afraid of him. He is not a monster that is capable of butchering his wife and son. And that is what the defense is trying to pull in with the jury when he's saying things like, I am honored to be here. Alex, stand up. Look, we know each other. We are collegial. I'm not afraid of him. He's not a murderer. He's wrongly accused. The defense had a rush to judgment. They were so convinced that he was a murderer that they didn't search his fucking house for murder weapons or clothes that had been discarded. That's how rushed to judgment they were. That's how rushed to judgment they were. Okay. I'm going to get to a few questions while we're waiting for the jury to come back out. Thank you to the over 20,000 of you watching across platforms. Go ahead and do the YouTube things or the Facebook things. Go ahead, do the like, subscribe, all of those things. We are close to going up another 1,000 here on the ticker. So if you guys want to go ahead and do those things, don't forget to do them. I will be here every day covering this trial. This is what I do. Did he just suggest the subordinating of perjury? I don't think he did. But what he did do is suggest that there would be a jury view at the property. That will be interesting. He also, he said you didn't do it repeatedly, but he was trying to couch it in the explanation of beyond a reasonable doubt, but it still is kind of subliminal. That was clever. And he definitely threw in that it's as an offhanded content. Well, it's much more likely that two people did it, and just kind of kept scooting. I don't even know if the prosecution caught it, but you're not just allowed to throw in some other dude did it. There have been motions about this in court. Well, it's much more likely two people did it, just kind of throwing it away. But if two people did it, it doesn't exclude this defendant from being involved. So I thought that was very, very interesting. Patricia D, you're coming back to us with the information that we needed. Live updates from the morning stream. The all-dressed chips are amazing. Aren't they great? They're so good. They're so good. Law and Crime has 10K watching. We're not competitive over here at all. Maybe just a little bit. I know y'all love being in this chat. This chat is the best chat on the internet. What else did he say? They never searched the house. They never searched the house doesn't feel like a rush to judgment to me. Does it feel like a rush to judgment to you? They were so convinced he did it that they treated him like a murderer and they searched the entire house for murder weapons. They searched the 1,700 acre property. You know, we're talking about these cell phones going silent at before 9 o'clock p.m. But that 911 call doesn't come in until much later. Let's see. What time did that 911 call come in? I don't think I have that in my notes. I'm going to look real quick. I could go pull the audio of it. 10:05, Mr. Murdaugh called 911. So the cell phones go silent an hour before he calls 911. That's an interesting thing. And they're going to talk about it. I didn't know Maggie Murdaugh's phone had been thrown or discarded away from the property. That's a very interesting thing. But could his phone have gone that way? Was his phone still off when that happened? Could his phone have still been off? There is gunshot residue on the seatbelt, we've heard from the prosecution. The inside of a raincoat, we've heard. We've heard that there's GSR kind of everywhere, but also what they're trying to say is, well, that gunshot residue could have come from him picking up a shotgun, and he admits later that he picked one up because he thought the murderer was still on the property. And that's very interesting. Monster 000711, could he be acquitted? Yes, he could be. The jury could find him not guilty. The jury could find him guilty. Either of those things can happen. So that 911 call came in at 10:05 p.m. So with that timeline, it's very interesting. It's very interesting. So CBS News and NBC have less than 1,000 watching each. During Depp v. Heard, our streams beat every channel on YouTube, all of the legacy media channels on YouTube combined, except for Law and Crime. So how'd the GSR get in the car? Here's the timing of it, Aaron. You've asked the right question. Here's why. He says he doesn't discover their bodies until he returns to the house. And he doesn't return to the house until shortly before the 911 call, after 10 p.m. But how does he explain getting back? Does he get back in the car? Does he pick up a shotgun in the house and then drive back and forth? When is he getting in the car to get the GSR in there? Does he see Paul and Maggie shot and leave them up at the kennels and go down to the house and grab a shotgun and then go back up to the kennels? And if so, is that the explanation, that there's GSR, that he grabbed the shotgun and got in the car and so it transferred up there with him? We're gonna have to see the timeline on that. So Deborah said they mentioned the boat incident. Are we going to see details from that case? Not a lot. We are going to talk, or they are probably going to talk about the facts of that case and what was happening with regard to what was happening with regard to the boat case and the questioning of them. So, but would there be GSR? There would be GSR on a gun that fires anyway, but not necessarily if it wasn't fired. But I want to hear what the expert has to say. I am not an expert in gunshot residue. Any idea why the DA wouldn't
Bring the jury in.
We'll talk about that in a break. He was in the car when he called 911. So did he go and get the residue? But a gun that's not fired, the defense said in their opening that the expert will say that could happen from just picking up a gun. We'll see. We'll see what they say. I'm very interested to see what they say. One of the attorneys representing one of the boat victims was in court and probably will be. Were there dogs in the kennels? They were taking video of them. So yes, there were. None of the dogs were harmed. So with that, we will see. So we will see. They are, Andy said, I've heard a person can obtain GSR on a hand if they've touched a victim in an attempt to save them. We will hear that. But the things I would expect to see in a case where the defense is arguing there would be so much blood, how are there no clothes? How is there no blood on Alex's clothes if he's touched them enough to have gunshot residue on them from them?
We are through for the day.
There would be blood. More blood.
9:30 tomorrow morning. Remember the oath that you took and the instructions that you're not to discuss the case with anyone. You're not to engage in any search for further details.
These are the instructions at the end of the day.
And
the judge seems quiet.
At 9:30 tomorrow morning, following the instructions given to you by the bailiffs as to where to report to. You'll never come through the courtroom to get to the jury room. And we'll see you at 9:30 tomorrow morning. Yeah. Make up. All right.
Wait, no,
We're in recess as to the jury.
he's going to talk to the lawyers.
Go.
Go. Get up. Leave. Goodbye. That's funny. Well, Your Honor, they heard you earlier when you said, I have not excused you yet. So you need to make it explicitly clear. They don't want to mess it up like it happened earlier. They're trying to be careful, Your Honor. They're just trying to be careful. That's all. And I think that's fair that they're trying to be careful. Because earlier in the day, he was like, I haven't excused any of you yet. Don't pack up yet, class. So that's kind of funny. That's kind of funny. So let's hear what the lawyers have to say about scheduling. He's telling the audience to be seated.
Just a couple of things with regard to the daily transcript. Is that what is the problem? Is that system? Can someone tell me? Is that it? Okay, well, this transcript is not an official transcript. It's not, the official court reporters are the two South Carolina judicial branch employees and not the company that produces this
Daily
transcript that
defense hired.
those in the media or the parties may be interested in purchasing. We want the parties to acknowledge that they understand that any transcript produced by anyone other than the court reporters is not
Interesting.
a verified true copy transcript.
Your Honor, we understand that. So both of us, though, have a concern that this microphone And we've expressed, I mean, if it's picked up conversations between us and our client, or we're concerned that that not appear in the daily transcript.
All right, and the transcript, I mean, that microphone is by the same outfit? Whose
We're told-
microphone is it?
We're told when that clock in front of you is on, it's on, right?
Yes, that microphone, the microphone on the AG's table, the microphone in front of the clerk's bench, and the microphone you are speaking into that has the mute button, those are FTR, or the record microphones. That's what's giving you the daily transcripts,
They have the ability to mute and unmute.
and it is also tied to the PA system.
So that, I don't really care about the daily transcripts. For my problem is that we can't get audio in the courtroom, and that's what we're gonna try to fix tonight.
Well, we're talking about one thing right now.
Counsel, don't jump ahead.
With regard to the, for the record transcript, the non-official, and is that where the problem is now with, that you all have been working on? Or is that now been resolved with that company?
The problem with STR and
I'm very interested.
transcript, the daily transcript, that is working fine. When we had to move some of the equipment around earlier, it messed up some of the wiring.
For the audio?
Yes,
Oh,
All right. And is that what you're working on, said you'll be working on overnight or
We're
something?
gonna, yes, sir, we're gonna come up with a solution that's independent of any of the court-provided facilities, you know, and we'll come up with something.
tech
I'm
issues.
gonna get a guitar amplifier if I need to. But yeah, we'll get something done.
Tracks.
Is there anything else before we break for the day?
Say, Your Honor.
Nothing for the defense, 9:30, am I correct about that?
9:30.
Yes, sir.
9:30.
Court will be in recess till 9:30.
Okay. Court is in recess, officially in recess. And with that, we are wrapped for the day. There are some tech issues still going on in court. I am very curious to see who he's talking. It looks like he might be talking in the direction of his son. I believe this is his sister in the polka dot shirt. And we are seeing some of the family in court. And we're going to see, of course, yeah, it did look like he was talking to his son standing right there. I'm sure we will see some of the reporters paying attention to what is being said in the casual way that this individual is just on trial for a double homicide and allowed to just turn around and talk to the gallery. Deputies. He's on trial for murder. And he's just casually having a chit chat. It's kind of wild. Looks like a civil case, not a criminal case. Feels like it. Feels like it. And telling the sheriff to hold on. Like, I'm not ready yet. No. No defendant in the world. No defendant in the world that I have ever seen has been allowed. Yet what's in your pocket? No, you can't just have fucking Tic Tacs. Who gave you the Tic Tacs? Deputy, take the Tic Tacs. Oh my God. Oh, he can't just take whatever he wants into custody. Are his attorneys handing him things? What are you doing? Good job, deputy. Don't let this man get away with anything. It's the unreal. Sir, you are on trial for a double homicide. You're not in trial as a lawyer. You're the defendant. Act like it. You don't run this. What? It's not a concert. This hurts my head. But he's absolutely acting like he owns this county, like he owns this courthouse, and like he owns this courtroom. And I think that he believes he does. Well, we got a little shot of the jury box. Jurors, of course, were not in it. He does. He looks like he's running things. Hey, thanks. Hey, this. Hey, that. They're like, you can't just have fucking Tic Tacs. And Oh my God. I am very surprised by these little details, but then again, I'm not surprised. It's kind of what this whole case is about, isn't it? It's kind of what this whole case is about, isn't it? Power, influence, and a family legacy that is rolled over the Low Country for generations. And it is wild. Did the judge see that? Judge was well off the bench. But he thinks he does. His granddaddy's picture is hung there for years. Yep. Didn't they have to take his granddaddy's picture down from this courtroom? They had to take his grandfather's picture off the wall in this courtroom. This is exactly why I want to watch this one, because he is a legacy there. He is. Wait, is it in South Carolina? Yes, it is. It's just, and again, look, I'm from Southern California. I mean, this is not, there are very few generational families. There are some, but it's a much more transitory location. All right. I'm going to give a summary. We're going to get to questions. I know all of you are like, goat.
I grant your request for the goat. The goat is offended by Tic Tacs and by the audacity of this shit.
Offended by the audacity.
Offended. Transitory. Somebody asked, what do I mean? I mean, it's people who live in Los Angeles aren't always from Los Angeles. You have some, but you don't have families that are generational Angelenos. Some, but not as many. It is, people tend to come and go and come for work and move for this. And it's not, there's more of an ebb and flow. There aren't as many generational. It's the kind of place where people are like, where'd you grow up? And you're like, here. And they're like, wait, what? People are actually from here? They don't all just move in. The family did own the courtroom for generations. They did. And he still thinks he does. And we're seeing it, aren't we? We're seeing it. So this is a great question, Bart. He probably thinks no one will dare to convict him. Yeah, he's looking at the jury going, do you have the audacity to try to convict me of this? Because I have the audacity. Sir, your ego is showing. What? You mean I can't take my Tic Tacs back to custody with me? No. Yikes. And I'm sure, because we've heard through the Murdaugh Murders podcast with Mandy Matney, we have heard some of his jail calls with Buster, and he talks about the fact that he's running it, that he's got money on different people's books, that they're doing favors for him, that his calls aren't going all on his number, that he's running calls from other people's number. When you're in custody, they have numbers, they track you, they track your calls, but it makes it harder to find phone calls if he's calling out after somebody else's number. It makes it much more difficult to track down which calls he's making, because they're supposed to be made under his number, but if he's using someone else, they're made under their number. So he's putting money on people's books and I'm sure granting favors. And in a county where wealth disparity is large, you can get a lot done putting money on people's books. Everybody who's watched Real Housewives of Salt Lake City knows about putting money on people's books now. Shit's wild. Can that come up? No, not in trial. This is just from around. But listening to the Murdaugh Murders podcast has helped. So let's do a quick summary of these opening statements. Let's just do that. And then we'll get to questions, and then we'll wrap for the day so we can rest up for an early morning tomorrow. Everybody who was like, Emily, your hair is cute today. No, today's today. We finished opening statements from the prosecution and defense. We have not gotten to witnesses. We hear that the first witness tomorrow will be body cam footage and a law enforcement first responder. So today we heard from the prosecution that there is cell phone evidence in a timeline of when Alec Murdaugh was at the property at Moselle, and he was at the property at Moselle moments before Paul and Maggie Murdaugh's cell phones went silent forever. There was an indication in there that Alec Murdaugh's phone was off during the suspect period of time. We have seen that in other cases. This will not be the only case where we see that their phone was not receiving any reception. Now, the prosecution's going to argue it's turned off, and the defense is going to be like, no, he was out of cell range. Well, he's not out of cell range on Moselle if they all are on the same cell phone plan and his son Paul is Snapchatting friends talking about a dog. And you can hear Alec and Maggie also talking about a dog or a chicken or a peahen or whatever. So that will be an interesting argument. The cell phone, I think the thing I like the most about cell phone evidence is it is neutral third-party evidence. It's just, what was it? What was pinging? What does that mean? Where was it? And the radius is going to be interesting because they're on a 1,700 acre property that is theirs. So what is the radius on those cell phone towers, and do they have GPS? When does he connect to the car? So the defense argued, look, they're saying these cell phones went off at 9:06, but then he's calling Maggie's phone at 9:04, and then he's getting in his car to drive. He didn't have time to clean up, and he never even said ditch the weapons, but ditch the weapons. When does he have time to do all of this? And did police do a thorough search? And how could he have hidden these things so well that police wouldn't find them? Well, they didn't look, because I think they didn't think it was him initially. But then why did police tell everybody in the county that they were safe and say that there was nothing to worry about? Well, I think the argument for that is, if this family's being targeted, do other families have to worry? Because Alec Murdaugh told everybody it was about the boat case. You know what the defense slipped into their defense statement, other than getting into graphic detail about how Paul Murdaugh was shot? He said that you will hear, so we're going to hear some of Alec Murdaugh's interviews. And what the defense said is Alec Murdaugh, or Murdaugh, however you pronounce it, which I also thought was interesting. But he said that Alec was questioned after finding his wife and son butchered. And the accusatory way he was questioned, maybe he might, quote, he might not have dealt all the facts. That was the quote that stuck with me most from this defense opening statement. So the defense has acknowledged what I suspected, which is in some of these recorded interviews with police, Alec did not deal all the facts. So now he's going to blame the police. We're already hearing that. It was very accusatory. The accusatory way he was questioned, they didn't even search his fucking house. The bailiffs are like, pardon me, sir? It's time to leave court now. Can you say goodbye to your family? Are you kidding me? He might not have dealt all the facts. Why are you not dealing all the facts if you're looking for the murderer of your wife and son, the person who butchered your wife and son? And if you are touching them enough to get gunshot residue on you, why don't you have blood on you? Because they said they were trying to discount the gunshot residue. So if they're going to try to argue that the gunshot residue was picked up from the victims, how do they explain that he did not have blood on him, but he had no blood? Well, how? Because you've told us what a bloody crime scene it is. So if he's touching them enough to pick up gunshot residue, how does he not have blood on him? The two can't be the same. If he is grabbing his family, if he is holding his wife who has been shot, or holding his son, he checked for a pulse. Why is there no blood then on his hands, that he's wiped on his shirt, that he's wiped on his pants? Because he was trying to keep blood off of him, perhaps. And why is he trying to keep blood off of him if he came up on his family? Because he didn't have smears of blood. He didn't have blood from kneeling down next to where his wife was. He didn't have blood from touching the victims. And the defense is going to make a big deal that he had no blood on him. Well, I don't think that cuts the way they think that it does. And I don't think that it will. but maybe it will. It will be like, if you committed this bloody, bloody crime scene, why aren't you covered in blood? But also, if you're touching victims enough to get gunshot residue on you, why don't you have blood? I want to see, we're going to hear a lot of graphic testimony. So that, so with that, I thought the opening statements were good. So I thought the opening statements were good. We got one objection that was sustained when the defense was trying to get into what a witness is going to say. They got into the fact that his father died 2 days later. 2 days later after these murders. Poor Alec Murdaugh. His father passed right after. So of course, his father had just gone to the hospital. So of course he'd want to go see his mother with dementia and not go to the hospital where his father is. Of course he wants to go see his mother instead of going to the hospital to see his father. This question, the statement, Celine, makes sense. The term butchered paints a very gruesome picture that does not jive with no blood. I agree. And I don't think, well, we'll see. We'll see how the prosecution, deals with that, and we'll see how they talk about it. So, question, what was being said about his raincoat, that he ditched it somewhere and it had gunshot residue on the inside of the raincoat? So it will be interesting to see more information about that. Let's get to questions. We should just switch to fact around and find out and wrap up our questions, and then I gotta go make sure my kiddos are good. We're going to get to some questions. If you're new here, let us know. Pop a 1 in the chat. Go ahead and like and subscribe. You know, we appreciate it. I appreciate it. Emily, don't talk about yourself in the third person. It's weird, girl. I appreciate it. And I think the Law Nerds, we like to watch our community grow. And sometimes we get competitive as a community. So thank you for that. If you like legal commentary, please quickly explain why this case is so huge. I mean, I think we got to that well before I pulled this up, and we got to it before we started today. We went through the timeline before court began. The entire thing is just so absurd that it sounds ludicrous, and you just want to find out what the actual hell is going on. Yes. So many lies around money for the kids. We're going to hear about that in this trial, I think. Leslie said, I'm from the Low Country, living in WNC now. I have a close friend who knows Alex, and he has some very interesting theories. The whole thing is fascinating to me. It's the end of a century-long legacy. It is. And it's a crashing end. You cannot make this stuff up. No. In the immortal words of True Religion, not the chains. Bad religion. Sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. Question, will the prosecution always take a deal offer to secure a verdict if the defendant changes his mind, or is it possible that they feel good enough with their case without a deal? I don't think a deal was offered in this case. I don't think one would be. Prosecutors do not always offer plea deals. Sometimes it's like, no, a jury needs to decide. So no, prosecutors don't always offer plea deals. People can plead open to the court if they wanted to and say, I just want to plead, the way you plead not guilty. Your Honor, I want to plead guilty. And then the court has to deal with it. Was anyone even allowed to visit the hospital? This was 2021, July 2021 in South Carolina. I think he probably would have been. Are witnesses restricted from watching YouTube or court TV? Yes. We saw that come up. Witnesses are not allowed to watch other witness testimony. There are a few exceptions for certain law enforcement members, but generally no. And we saw that come up in a big way in Depp v. Heard, where one of the witnesses had said she had seen clips, like come across clips of the witness testimony, and they're like, it's out. Question, Murdaugh's motive. The prosecution is saying it is the financial crimes tumbling down. So we'll see if they get into that much. There's still motions pending on that. Mariko said, question, if prior bad acts cannot be admitted per the judge, by the prosecution, then how will the prosecution show motive? The judge didn't rule that. they haven't had a hearing on it yet. The judge said that he was not inclined to rule something admissible until the trial progressed. So with that, the judge has not ruled it out. The judge just won't rule it in. So that will come in. We'll see what prior bad acts come in, but that has not been excluded. Question, was he wearing the same clothes he went to see his dad, or he was in the, we don't know. I don't know. So we will see. Will the boat accident be spoken about with regard to Paul and Alex showing up at the hospital? I don't know if that part will come up. The boat accident has already been referenced, but I don't know if that information will come up with it. So we'll see. If his alter ego was Timmy, does that mean he was living a lie? I don't know. Can you hold my husband in contempt? He is talking during court. TM. This is what we get for talking during court.
This is what we get. This is contempt. It's contemptible. Your husband has gotten the pickle. So he got the dill. The full dill.
I can't stop. I should record Cartman introducing you. I mean, Timmy. I reference South Park too much. Ellen, not Sarah. I just joined the channel, but still have to wait 10 minutes to send a regular chat. Not related to Hogue, just trying to support him. There is a subscriber mode that was on. Our subscriber mode was a little longer for chat today, just because sometimes we get audiences that come in just because it's on the explore page of live, and they're not quite law nerds yet. So we have sometimes a little longer subscribers only mode. Is he not in custody? Oh, he's in custody. He's in custody. He's in custody. Yeah. That's why the defendant made the comment about guns everywhere. He did. And it's interesting because I think this jury would be like, yeah, and like, they're not going to think it's weird that there's guns on a hunting estate at all. But the prosecution did say there were bullets all over the property. So I don't know if I think that the guns were just in a gun room. I'm not sure that the guns were just in one location, because he's like, there were rounds everywhere. Do you think the prosecution will point out the ego? No, not specifically. I think they'll let that display itself. So are you going to continue to cover Angelina Jolie versus Brad on the podcast after this trial? I will search back around. I saw a new doc that says Brad had a small scratch, so they both had injuries. I haven't looked at new documents in it. I will circle back to it after coverage of this. While I'm doing this, I won't be doing much other cases. On the podcast, I will do kind of summaries of some of the other stuff we're covering, but not yet. Listen, bud, you're no Ben Chu. Leave the candy on the desk. He's not allowed to have candy. Only been here about a month, already addicted. Glad to have you. Welcome to the Law Nerds. What's the deal with the defense paying for a daily transcript? Is that typical? No, most defense attorneys don't have that kind of money, especially state defense attorneys. They don't have that kind of money at all. Why are they doing it? I don't know. Probably because they're civil attorneys and they're used to being able to pay for daily transcripts, and they don't know how they could ever possibly ever remember everything that was said and write it all down the way everybody else does. I've never had daily transcripts of a trial I've done, but it's very common in civil cases. So, butchering implies some bladed weapon. I think so too. If they go on a field trip, do we go with them? Not necessarily. No. Be prepared for a Matlock-like defense. We definitely are. Any idea why the DA wouldn't present a motive? In opening statement, they're not presenting a motive because they don't know how the evidence will come in, and they don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. The judge has not ruled the prior bad acts evidence admissible yet. We're not there. So, per Google, GSR stays on the skin 1 to 7 hours and on clothing up to 2 months. And they might argue that too. Hey, they go shooting all the time. So it is a hunting cottage. Emily, off topic with all the recent evidence, Britney Spears clearly, her hubby, I don't know about that. Clearly makes a lot of determinative statements that I can't determine, and I don't think that we can't determine. So I have not seen what's going on with Britney lately. I've been really focused on covering this case, and there is a lot. This case is 100 cases in one. And that's just the criminal indictments. There's also like 8 or 9 civil cases. So this case is an entire world of cases, but I'm not passing judgment on what Brittany needs or doesn't need. I don't know that. I am not her husband, her doctor, her bestie, her attorney. So I don't know what Brittany needs. I think Brittany, if anything, probably needs a lot of support after everything that she has been through. Is the state paying for the defense attorneys? No, these are not state-appointed defense attorney. Alec is paying for them. I don't know how. These attorneys make you think that they are friends, long-term colleagues. These are long-term colleagues and friends. Yes. Excuse me, bailiffs. What is happening? Does Murdaugh get to go home now? Why does he have so many freedoms? I don't know. I missed the Waukesha judge. Fair. It's actually 103 cases. It's more than that. Does his casual attire mean he's not worried? I think that's the clothes they got from his house, and I also think they wanted the jury to relate to him and not think that he was above them. They want him to be relatable. This is a jury of his peers. They want him to be relatable. Sandy said Jim Griffin is a family friend. I mean, they graduated from the same law school, like 3 years. So question, why is the courtroom only half full? I thought it would be packed. I thought it would be packed too. Maybe everybody's at home watching it on YouTube because it's streaming. If I could stay at home, I'd stay at home. Like if you're in the courtroom, there are things you are going to perceive in the courtroom. There are plenty in there that are going to be reporting it. There's plenty to be gleaned from being in the courtroom, but you also can't get up and move around. You can't talk about it. You can't live tweet it unless you have press access. You can't be in your comfies, and you're going to be sitting, on those hard pews all day. They gave us a range, Peachy. They gave us a range on the age of the jurors, and that's on Shanley Painter's Twitter. I pulled that up in the earlier part of the day. Question, do you think it feels weird for judges to oversee cases that involve lawyers they know? In most cases, judges overseeing cases of lawyers they know can be a conflict. If a judge is a close personal friend with a lawyer, they can't preside over that lawyer's case because they're close personal friends. So it's not weird. It doesn't happen. So this judge, I would assume he might know of Alec Murdaugh. Alec Murdaugh might have appeared in front of him before, but I don't think this judge is friendly outside of work with these attorneys or knows them well, because then this judge would have recused themselves. So I'm not surprised. Yeah. Maybe the courtroom is half full because no one thought they would get to openings today. All the reporters in the courtroom said they would get to openings today. I think I was the only one who thought they wouldn't. I think I was on the wrong end of that assumption. I was the only one who thought that. So let's keep going real quick and get through some of the super chats. Dick, what are you doing? Is he using butcher because they weren't technically chopped up? I don't know why he's using it. It's odd for me. I have questions. I've heard cases 1 lost in opening statements. How true is that? 2, what's the D in EDB? We don't need to talk about what the D is in EDB. It's the D for EDB. And cases can be won and lost in opening. If you over deliver an opening and don't prove it, you're going to lose your credibility with the jury. For sure. But I don't think the jurors make up their mind at opening. They're not supposed to. It makes them curious and it makes them pay attention. And if you confuse them in opening, you might lose their attention. And if you annoy the fuck out of them in opening, which I suspect Elaine did in Depp v. Heard, my suspicion, I think that the jury can't hear your voice anymore. It becomes like nails on a chalkboard. They're like, oh my God, you're so annoying. I don't trust you. So it can be lost in that way, but not like a jury's like, fuck it, guilty, convict him now. That should never happen. The defense argument seems somewhat unconvincing. The defense is trying to poke holes. That is their job. They don't have to prove anything. They have to poke holes. Would the jury be privy to knowing he is bribing for extra privileges in jail? Bribing implies that officials are involved. I don't know if that's the right word for me. He is definitely working the in-custody system with other inmates and working advantage for the other inmates. But no, a jury will not know that at all. No. Lack of empathy in court? No, they're going to see only what he does in court when they are in court. That is all they will see. I'm not so sure I'm as impressed by the by defense counsel's opening as I was by the state's. He's doing okay with the burden though. He definitely used the burden to get into the jury's head innocent and to say innocent, which is not the burden. Well, no, there's a presumption of innocence. That is the presumption. The burden is the burden of proof with beyond a reasonable doubt. But he definitely took the advantage to explain the burden. Now burdens in my head, to explain the presumption of innocence, to say he didn't do it. He's innocent. Things he can't assert in his opening statement flatly, but he used the explanation of the presumption to state it flatly. So Kaz says, sounds like he's trying to impeach the testimony before it's been made. Yes, it did. This defense attorney makes me feel icky. He's definitely trying to do the thing. Hate him or love him, Harpootlian is a damn good lawyer who's going to give us a show. He will do that. He knows how to connect with juries and how to push the envelope. He definitely is going to do that. And as a defense attorney, he can. The state can't. There's a whole lot more rules on what the state can do than what the defense can do. I've never even heard of California earthquake chips. I'm going to have to find them next time I'm in California. I believe they don't blame him, blame me. Statement was to confuse the jury and that they may not realize if his attitude is delivering truth or fiction. That's interesting. I didn't think about it that way. Thank you. What was with him getting to stand up? He looked so awkward, and all I could think of was the state talking about how close up the shots came from. He's a tall man. I think he was trying to humanize this defendant to the jury. It sounds like he's saying it might have been Paul's fault. He was murdered because he was careless with guns. I don't think he was trying to blame Paul. I think he was trying to explain why or how a gun might have been missing. That these things just happen. These guns might just be missing. That's how I took it. But that is, again, what the defense is going to do. Go look at my coverage of other cases. The defense does what the defense does. It might be very uncomfortable for the rest of us, but the defense is definitely going to bring up what the victims were doing, how they were doing it, why they were there, how they ended up there, what was going on beforehand. That is their job, and that is part of the law. It's different than in the Weinstein case where they actually said some horrific things in opening and closing about the victims, but those counts all hung. So jurors aren't offended by this. This is the adversarial system. As jurors become more offended by it, it might switch. But jurors hear both sides. It is an adversarial system. And so, yes, you will see defense attorneys go after victims of any crime. That is part of their job. It is not the way we talk about things colloquially or in society, but it is absolutely what happens in a court of law. It's why a lot of victims don't want to come forward because they don't want to fucking deal with it, because it is awful. So every time I hear facts, my mind inserts not fuckery. Fair. That is very, very fair. That's what a defense does. They muddy the water. That's exactly what they do. And that's their job. That is their job. Did you hear about KB lawyer has a conflict? KB. Are we talking about Brian Kohlberger? I think we're talking about Brian Kohlberger. Attorney has a conflict of interest. She represented one of the victim's mother on drug charges multiple times. Lawyer dropped the mother and is causing a lot of concern. I'm not concerned about that. This defense attorney, Alec Murdaugh's attorney, represented the deceased victim, Paul, who he called irresponsible in his opening statement. That's his former client in the Mallory Beach criminal case. That's his former client in a connected case that I'm concerned about. But Brian Kohlberger's defense attorney, having previously represented one of the victim's mothers on completely unrelated crimes at a completely unrelated time, I don't think is an actual conflict, like a legal conflict. It might seem weird, but I don't think it's a legal conflict that defense attorney would have to not be on the case for. Also, there are very few defense attorneys that can handle the type of case. And if Brian Kohlberger is aware of it and doesn't have an issue with it, that's also probably the thing. So let's see. Alec didn't show emotion during his defense attorney's opening statements. He did. No, he absolutely did. I read that wrong. He did. Why wasn't he in prison clothes? Bruce, it is more common that defendants come to trial in civilian clothes. Most defendants do not go to trial wearing in custody like scrubs. They wear civilian clothes. Almost every case I've ever done, they've been in civilian clothes unless they refuse. And sometimes you see them refuse and are like, no, I'm in custody. They should know. So it's up to the defendant, but they're allowed to. And they do. Law Nerd 24, you win the day.
It's Emily Dill Baker. I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
The pickle is also now EDB with a dill. People seem mad that she got dropped as a client, but BK didn't. But that's because of the death penalty requirements. Yes, it makes sense. The client who can be represented by just about any attorney, especially if it is not a serious death penalty case, is the client that gets dropped. Sometimes it will, if there is an actual conflict. I think this is more of a perception of conflict than an actual conflict, but I am not a defense attorney. But if there is a perception of conflict, it's different. If there's an actual conflict, you normally stay with the older client, the client who has been your client for longer. But again, all the defense attorneys I've seen talk about it have said this is not an actual conflict. This is not an issue. And so if the defense attorneys are like, this does not make me uncomfortable at all, and that's what I also had perceived, then I'm going with that. So I'm going to do a few more super chats and then we're going to go. Angel, leave Brittany alone. I had to. I know. It's just, it's hard because people are curious. I think people are worried about her well-being, but also I can't imagine that it feels good to feel like you're being watched every time that you're out now that you finally get to leave your house after being in that conservatorship. I can't imagine that feels good. No matter how annoying, he did what he had to do. He introduced out and made us question some of what the prosecutor said in opening. And that is absolutely their job. That's why he said things I say are going to annoy you. And they will. That's literally their job. I want to write down a transcript of his opening statements and see how many times he didn't finish a thought because he said, and by the way, that's true. He did sidebar himself as much as I do, didn't he? I think all the and by the way makes this speech sound disjointed and uncompelling. It did feel like he was trying to fit a lot of information in, but it also might be his style. It might be his style. Christy, I am so sorry for your experience. I saw you share this earlier. I can only imagine, and I am so sorry. But there are going to be jurors who have similar horrific experiences that are going to say this doesn't fit, and we'll see what they say. So thank you for sharing that with the law nerds. The more he says butchered, the less of an effect it will have. And that's true too. I can't follow this defense attorney. He's all over the place. It felt that way. Well, I live in Colton County and most of us have a lot of guns. And I think the jury is probably like, I don't care if you're explaining that he has a lot of guns. It makes sense. Z said, doesn't Court TV own the pool cameras and has an agreement not to show graphic content as they stream on TV? Court TV owns the pool cameras. The court has a motion to seal the graphic content. And so the graphic content will be sealed and there will be placeholders. So a lot of it won't come in because of the sealing order. Court TV had an agreement based on the case and the judge's orders on what can and can't be shown. But this case is going to get into graphic detail. It'll mostly be through oral testimony, not through visual, but we will see some of it. So we are prepared. Will they be showing us graphic pictures? No, not horrifically graphic. They won't be. Those have been sealed. The judge sealed them earlier today. Is Buster a defense witness or state's witness? I believe he's on both witness lists. So the motive, I've talked about this in other content on the Emily Show podcast, the prosecution's motive, really the collapsing of the financial crimes. Is there a way to show when a phone is powered down? I don't know what dump they have from the phone, but normally you just see that the phone is having inert, no activity, but you don't know if it's turned off, if the battery died, if it's out of cell range. So it just depends on what they have. I don't believe they have the data that shows, oh, it's actually been turned off. Buzzer asks, what does he mean phone locks? So, you know, when you close your phone a certain amount of time, you need to go in and put like the passcode in again. It's saying that the phone was inert for long enough that the passcode locked and then the passcode wasn't unlocked again. So for me, I either need to, Face ID or put in my physical passcode. So let's see. Question, did the defense know that the prosecutors have all this information? Oh, yes. The defense has all this information as well, and have had, as long as the prosecution has had, there is an obligation that the prosecution, what's mine is yours. When you are a prosecutor, there is law, there are fundamental rights. It is a huge violation if those things aren't turned over. Huge, big, huge. So bigger than a dill pickle. It is a huge problem, but the prosecution has to turn over everything they have to the defense. There is no hidesies in criminal law. That kind of stuff happens in civil some. There's none of that in criminal. There is not supposed to be any of that in criminal law. Can I say that never happens? No, there is not supposed to be any of that in criminal law. It should never happen. Do jurors get offered counseling after cases like this? It depends on the resources of the jurisdiction. Never said that before. Not fond of the defense attorney. We've seen it in some cases. We'll see. He's a good lawyer and he's doing his job. Sometimes it's weird. Maggie reportedly texted a friend that she thought it was fishy that he wanted to see her and she thought something was up. We'll see. I mean, I think that's why the prosecution, I've heard that as well. I think that's why the prosecution said in June she didn't want to be at the hunting house. It was hot. It was buggy. She wanted to be at the beach. That's where she normally stayed. And I think we'll see that. Question, is it harder to try a former lawyer? I don't know if it makes it more difficult. I think the reputation and wealth are a bigger difficulty in this case. How long does a murder trial usually run for? There's no usual. It just depends on the case. It could be a week. It could be 3 days. It could be 11 months. It could be somewhere in between. There's no usual. It depends on the number of witnesses, the complexity of the case, and the way it's presented. Alec Murdaugh just got a thumbs up from his brother. It's just... Keeley said plea deal. Plea deal. Plea deal might need to be the name of the deal. We'll have to put up a poll and we'll have to vote on the name of the deal. It happened organically for Vincent Van Gogh. Initially, it claimed that the murders happened later, closer to 10 p.m. I wanted to pull this back up because information that the police let out in public, sometimes they use to work to their advantage, even if they know that that's not the accurate information. So, Emily, at one point, can you address why his attorneys are back and forth and what you think they might be going over? I have no idea. It depends on when they're talking, but they're going to be talking about what they've just heard. They're going to be talking about the case. They're going to be talking about witnesses. That we're going to see that a lot. Coley said, having survived being shot in the head myself, I'm sorry. I'm both irked and intrigued by how he's presenting this. That's an experience not a lot of people have, Coley, and I hope that you recovered well, spiritually and physically, because that's a lot. But yes, I can imagine being irked and fascinated. I am in the same place. I'm really interested to see this trial. I'm really interested to see how these lawyers present their cases, but also 2 people were murdered, and this is a family that's seemingly left a trail of bodies, and it's wild to me. So, question, has Murdaugh been in the court with this prosecutor before? I don't know if he's been in court outside of the confines of this prosecutor processing him, but he's been in court a lot with this prosecutor because this prosecutor's processing him on a lot of cases. I always appreciate a Legally Blonde reference. This attorney the prosecuting attorney, some people said, oh, his voice is shaking. He sounded excited to me. He did not sound nervous. He sounded like, ready to go. I want to get all this information to the jury. I want to get this thing started. That's how it sounded like to me. Can you use the court TV feed? I might switch to the court TV feed tomorrow. It didn't have closed captioning that I saw. And sometimes court TV goes to break and then picks back up. And I want to go to a court feed that's not going to take breaks. Janie, I talked about this a little earlier in stream. It looks like Buster did reach an agreement with the Mallory Beach family. I don't know where Buster is going to come up with $50 million or if that's an insurance thing. I don't know. But I have that. I have the, and maybe we can go over that tomorrow, but I have the settlement document or the court signing the settlement document because the court signed the Mallory Beach settlement. Thought Dick's wandering during opening was an interesting and smart move. Felt like he was subliminally aligning with the bench. It's interesting that he walked up to like the witness box. It's like, they're going to be standing here. Sometimes you do that. Emily, can you drop a link for your appearance on Court TV last night? They don't put it on YouTube. So I share the links to courttv.com when I'm going to be on Court TV, and it is live when it is live because it is TV. They don't always put those segments of closing arguments up on YouTube. You can ask them to. You can ask them on Twitter. You can ask them to, but they don't regularly put closing arguments up on Twitter. So that's why I share it. It's live when it's live. Will Paul's Snapchat be coming in? Yes. Not like his entire account, but the relevant portions of it will be. Wasn't Maggie's phone found far away? Not that far, but yes. Cell phones will show, as in the Snapchat post from Paul. Yes, I guess we're going to see the Snapchat. Shoveling snow while listening. That's a workout. Yours is the only one worth anything. Well, thank you. Here's to justice for the Murdaugh victims. I hope so too. I hope justice is done in this case. But sometimes justice being done and the internet agreeing is two different things. I mean, we saw that in the Deppie Heard case so much, didn't we? I don't know. It was only like segments of the internet that didn't agree. I felt like it was like a sliver. I felt like the rest of us were like, yeah, that seems like the right result. Question, is it expected that Alec will show no emotions during trial? No. I think we're starting to see him show some emotion. I want the judge to say facts, not fuckery. I don't think this judge would ever, but he gives his shade in his own way. He gives his shade in his own way. Alec specifically asked Maggie to come to Moselle. She told a friend that she thought Alec was up to something by inviting her to the property. I want to see what evidence we see of that, but I've heard that too. I feel badly for Buster. Maybe he believed his dad didn't do this before, but I don't see how he can believe it now. Or his dad's still alive and his dad was helping him. I don't know. After these murders, his dad went to the Bahamas because he wasn't under arrest. So there might be other motives for that, because Buster's not going to have much of a family legacy left after all of this. And his dad could be in prison for the rest of his life, even outside of these murder charges with all of the other cases pending. His mother and brother have been killed. It's a lot. And he's kind of left on his own. He got kicked out of law school for cheating. His dad couldn't get him back into law school. That's on some of the jail calls too. It's a lot. To allow your public to describe your son that way in public, he can act teary, but he knew this was coming and he allowed it. He knew what the defense would do. He had to. What breed would the people be if they were dogs, in your opinion? I have no idea. That is definitely not something that I would be good at deciding, because truly, I just don't know. Are any of Maggie's friends going to testify about the state of their marriage? I don't know if that's what they're going to testify about, but it is an extensive witness list. So we will absolutely see. Ashby abroad, popping in from South Korea. Hello. Buster's probably not going to have much money left either. I imagine not. What do you think they will ask Buster if he takes the stand? It depends who calls them. Emily was crushing it on Court TV. Everyone else was having audio difficulties. I thought I was having audio difficulties, but I'm glad that I wasn't. Buster got kicked out of law school. I didn't know that. Yep. For cheating. So that was an interesting thing. AG would be a German Shepherd. Chat, you're all welcome to decide. I can't. Let's see. Question, victim compensation. If we're talking about for Buster, no. If we're talking about for Maggie and like victim compensation can pay for things like funeral. I don't even know if this family went that direction. I don't know if they would, but that wouldn't help Buster for anything. How old is Buster? The chat might know. I don't know off the top of my head. He's young. I mean, though a lot of people are young. He's a younger man in his 20s. Question, how is Buster in court if he's a witness? He shouldn't be in court during witness testimony, but he is in court for opening statements. So obviously they've allowed it. Buster was born in 1996. Yeah, that makes me feel old. So if he was born in 1996, yeah, 25, 26. Question, did Maggie and Paul have life insurance? Would Alec get it? I don't know the state of life insurance, and if they're alleging financial crimes, that will likely come up. So Guys, who the heck is Buster? Sorry, April. I'm new to the case. The surviving son of Alec and Maggie Murdaugh, the brother of Paul. So let's see. Court TV does have your appearances on their YouTube. Okay, I'll find them. I did not look. It's been very busy. All right. You were born the year I graduated Beverly. I'm old. I don't know about that, Pup Mom RM. Buster Murdaugh was born the year I graduated. So there's that. Law nerds. Today we wrapped up pretty early. Emma asked, have you watched the HBO doc yet? If so, any thoughts? I've only seen clips of it. I have not watched the whole thing yet. I might try to watch it today. I think I have HBO because I have YouTube Premium. I don't know. I'll have to go find it. I have to go track it down. I have not tracked it down. I've watched a lot of them. So Julia said your audio was crystal clear. That guy who stayed on with you was bad sound quality, and then the connection. I couldn't hear him at all. And so I'm like trying intently to listen, but it was very garbled. And I was like, is it just me? Is it not just me? I don't know. So we will see. It's going to be really interesting to watch this through. The defense has made some big, bold claims. The prosecution has made some big, bold claims. Whether they will get into their motive or not, we will see. But that timeline is interesting and new information to me. And the cell phone is going to be very, very important in this case. I think the prosecution should focus on the cell phone evidence and not worry about any of the rest of it. And the defense is going to say, how could somebody clean this up? How could the guns get ditched? How could they do it? So we will see. Emily, I'm trying to convince Hogue to watch Housewives. Need your help. I'll call him. Hogue. Salt Lake. Watch Salt Lake. It's easy to get into. There's only 3 seasons. Just start at the beginning, or at least midway through in Beverly Hills, because it's legally related. How will they review a Snapchat if Snapchats disappear? Kylie, they don't. If you subpoena them, they're not all gone. So they will have them. They also have the physical device, and sometimes they are saved on the physical device. So they have the phone, but no, they're not all gone. So with that, it is time. Can anyone confirm that court starts at 2:30 p.m. Ireland time? Hold on. What is 9:30 a.m. ET in UTC? I can get you to UTC. 2:30 p.m. UTC. So we start tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. UTC. Hopefully that helps. I guess, I don't know what 9:30 a.m. Eastern in Ireland. I can Google that too. Let's see. 2:30 p.m. Wednesday in Ireland. So Ireland and UTC are on the same. So there we go. Thank y'all. +6. I believe 2:30. Y'all are smart. I just have to Google. I don't know these things. So +6 like England. So same time zone, which is nice. So what time does the court start Pacific time? -3. So 9:30 a.m. -3. So what, 6:30? Y'all are making me do math. I feel like, is this bait? Y'all are trying to make me do bait. Thank you all for dropping your time zones. I will drop it with UTC. I imagine court will be starting around 9:30 a.m. Central or Eastern, around 9:30 Eastern most of the days of trial. So we will be here bright and early tomorrow. I will probably start the stream just a few minutes early. I'll probably set it like 10 minutes early, and I'll probably actually start it like 5 minutes early because I'm often late. But the court hasn't been starting like right on time. So it gives us a little time to chat with that. Chelsea, what a great tool. Every time zone. That's fantastic. Thank you. That's fantastic and helpful. Is Buster a lawyer? No. Buster was kicked out of law school and was not readmitted. So with all of that, y'all, thank you for being here. Thank you for being law nerds. Thank you for riding with me. Don't forget to do the YouTubey things, and I will see you tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. for the first day of evidence. It sounds like we're starting with videos for the class. Bring snacks, bring breakfast. It sounds like we're starting with videos. We're starting with body cam, and that will be very interesting. It's an interesting way to start. So with that, I will see you in the next one. Thanks.
You can find all the Law Nerd goodies at lawnerdshop.com. Connect with me on social media at the Emily D. Baker. And don't forget to check out my podcasts, The Emily Show, and the new podcast, Quick Bits, summarizing everything I talk about on my Tuesday and Thursday live streams. You know, when you only have time for just the quick bits.